inserted in the wrong area.
All right, here we go. We're up. Perfectly on time, 7 o'clock. So I'll call this meeting to order. This is the May 23rd, 2018 Nottingham Planning Board. And tonight's evening meeting will be a joint meeting with the zoning board. And we welcome them to this meeting, but it's going to be kind of an open forum. We do have a brief agenda that we will go through, but first I'd like to just go around the table and have introductions. So we'll start with Buzz, if you would.
Robert Davies, alternate.
Joe Clough. Edward Veal.
Your turn.
Oh, sorry. Tony Dumas, Select Board.
Charlene.
Your turn.
I know. Excuse me. Susan Mooney, Planning Board.
Eric Rotenheis, Chairman of the Planning Board.
Mike Russo, Chair of the Zoning Board.
Bonnie Winona McKinnon, Vice Chair of the Zoning Board.
Peter White, the zoning board.
Teresa Bascom, Zoning Board and Planning Board.
Kathy Bowles, alternate zoning board.
Charlene, since you came in last, you want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, Charlene Anderson, Board of Selectmen.
I'd like to recognize two members that are in the public. You just want to state your name and we've got you on record.
Chris Sterndale, Town Administrator.
Russ Buchholz, Building Inspector.
We've gotten past the first point of our agenda, and that's really to make introductions. The intent here is to kind of come up with either items that the zoning board is seeing that can help the planning board, and vice versa, the planning board is seeing that help the zoning board. If there are critical items or even elements of the zoning and planning board regulations that seem to be either misleading or confusing, and we should try and get some of those things cleared up. And as we've gone through some of the applications through the planning board and the zoning board as well, we often find specific items that either contradict or just need some more coordination in how interpretations of are going on our regulations. I do know Mr. Sterndale had provided some suggestions for edits to the zoning board. I don't know if you want to present those, or how do you want to handle those?
Well, sure. This is actually mostly Russ's list, but
Yeah.
why don't we'll just introduce it and you can take it or leave it.
Okay, sorry. Do you need to be seated?
Yes. Do I or do I not? Is there any vote tonight?
Might as well, just in case.
Okay, have Buzz be seated for who's missing?
Gary.
Gary.
And I'm just gonna go point of order for a second. I think we had a case scheduled for tonight that was scheduled for 7 p.m. Do we want to handle that first?
There's nothing on our,
That's the one I mentioned to you, Sarah Evans. They pulled out. They withdrew their case.
Withdrew the application?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't take any action on it?
Am I supposed to?
Thank you, sorry.
it's okay, it just wasn't on the agenda. So.
Yeah, that's why I want to make sure we got it before. Forgot about it.
Okay, so please share, whatever you have been seeing in the field, or concerns from applicants or citizens or like that.
So Russ has been with us for 8 months. Sadly, tomorrow will be his last day with us. He's going off to Wakefield to work for the town of Wakefield. So this is our last shot at him. In helping him get up to speed and in taking, I've spent more time on planning and zoning stuff since we had turnover in the position. We've run across a number of things that either are challenging to interpret or implement, or things that Russ has seen that maybe he's seen in other towns, the way other towns do it, that are worthy of your consideration. Those things started to stack up, and 2 or 3 months ago I said, just start making a list, Russ, and we'll throw it at the boards when we get a chance. And that's That's, I think, is the essence of that
Yeah.
list. We could probably, with a little bit more energy, come up with a few more things that we have the benefit of him starting from scratch and reading stuff as he's taking applications. He's looking right at the zoning ordinance and not having anything to do with it ever. He's a new set of eyes on it and looks at it a lot more like a resident or an applicant would, and he's been able to identify some stuff. I have a couple other things to throw at you after you get to this list. And I don't know what level of detail you want to talk about this, if you have questions about any of them, or if you want Russ to talk through them. It's really just these are things we think you ought to talk about. And we haven't flushed out specific language on things. We haven't gone too far with it. That's really your role and
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and you know, everything here we'll take under advisement and, you know, try and come up with some recommendations and solutions if we need them, and work them into either some zoning amendments or planning board regulation amendments, things like that.
Do you want me to go through the list?
Yeah, I mean,
Just give you some feelings, you know, some feedback on?
yeah, just some feedback is fine. I know we've got your list. I mean, if
Yeah.
it's worth going bullet by bullet, then that's fine.
I think some of it is.
Okay.
You know, we're Article 2, Section 2, where we have the conforming and non-conforming. Really, I think we need to separate that into just different paragraphs. They run into each other. There is only one place in the whole paragraph that addresses side or rear setbacks. I'm sure you guys, we've had emails back and forth about this, and, you know, how it's read, and I think by just separating those two articles completely, two paragraphs completely, this is what we have for conforming, this is what we have for non-conforming. It's gonna make a big difference on, that. There was a suggestion, Joanna came up with, where we could do a chart even, that has the differences as an
Is that
example.
the? on
That's the
back of that
example,
first
yes.
page?
Something like that. And, you know, ADUs, I think, should be their own paragraph too. It has become such a huge part of the building department, and I think we need to address it a little bit clearer and a little bit better. There was a couple of things I had on ADUs, not to jump around, but where that's on there. You know, maybe setting a 2-bedroom max. The state says we can't limit it to 1. Most communities have limited it to 2. I think it's a good way to control the growth of those and try to, you know, keep it somewhat.
Doesn't the law limit it to 2?
No, the law says you can't limit to 1, but it's up to the town to set the limit to 2.
And on that, I think, I remember the prior building inspector, we indicated that basically the square footage regulated it, saying that by code, the building code, you can't have.
You can have a tiny living room, a tiny kitchen, and 3 bedrooms in a 750 square foot unit.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that's where we'd gone with direction, because I think we had looked at that before,
Yeah.
when we had revised that, when we had to increase the square footage. And the state mandated 750 be the minimum. And at that time, it was, if I remember correctly, you know, it was the, per Paul, it was the building code, basically, that was defaulting to, that was gonna be the what restricted it to 2, but I think it would probably be good to probably write it out.
I think it would be,
instead.
you know, it just would protect you from having these
Yep.
3-bedroom units going in, and which is gonna cause greater impact, and it's gonna cause discrepancies with impact fees and everything else. The attachment, this has been a bone of contention through building inspectors throughout the state. There's people out there with 2x4s that are nailed together 60 feet long, and there's your attachment from one building to the other. Creates an attached ADU with a wooden plank walkway with a door.
And, yeah, I was gonna say, because the RSA requires the shared interior door.
Yeah.
I think we do too.
A shared door, interior door, but
Interior.
they're getting around that with all these makeshift long breezeways and things like that. I think you should fine tune it and state that, you know, if it's gonna be attached by a breezeway, put a restriction, 10 feet, 5 feet. We've had people coming in looking for ADU permits, they want a 60-foot hallway going between a garage, an existing garage, where they wanna put an ADU on the second floor.
All right.
And If that's spelled out a little bit better, it's gonna take away from that. The state doesn't allow you to use a mobile home or a manufactured home for an ADU. We've got people looking to add ADUs onto mobile homes and manufactured homes. I know the state doesn't allow it, but I think if it was spelled out in our zoning ordinance, it would take some of the confusion out, because we get a lot of requests for that kind of stuff.
Or a mobile
Yeah.
as an ADU.
Yeah, you're not supposed to take a mobile and slap it onto a house. So vice versa, take an addition. You can build an addition on a mobile, but you can't build an addition and turn it into an ADU.
Yeah, so we do have ADUs may not be a manufactured home. So I don't know if that covers it, or if it's saying, and if we need to
The
add,
inverse of that. I
It's
think.
the reverse of
cannot
that.
be added onto a mobile
Right.
manufactured home.
Yeah, we have ADUs as one of our kind of working sections
Okay.
that we're going through.
It's just been real tough. The building inspectors across the state are just going crazy with this.
Yeah, and the RSA has changed
Yeah.
like several times
Yeah,
in the
changed
last couple of
again
years.
last July, I think,
Yeah.
November.
Buzz.
I just am looking for a little clarification. Where do we fit, in your mind, where do we fit open space subdivisions into this conforming and non-conforming?
Subdivisions, open phase subdivisions would be laid out through the planning board level before it went to, everything would be laid out through the planning board on setbacks. And if you have a two-lot minimum, then you go back to conforming lots or non-conforming lots, unless you set a different provision in the planning board level. Or
I guess what my question is this, that open space by definition is smaller building lots.
Right.
So does that mean that they're non-conforming in your estimation?
It depends on the lot size. We're talking lots on
Well,
this.
they'd all be under 2
Then they would be non-conforming lots unless a provision was set at the planning board level for what the setbacks had to be on that subdivision. That's usually laid out through the planning board when they approve the subdivision. They'll say, okay, we want every house to have a 30-foot setback, side and rear. 30 from the front, or 50 from the front. So that should be ironed out at the planning board level. Grandfathered, very, very confusing word. Most of us building inspectors throughout the state trying to get that removed from everything. Non-conforming is the proper terminology. Grandfathered just creates all kinds of disillusions for the public, and it would really probably be in your benefit to just remove that completely out of the ZBA. There's a few sections in there where I think one of them is a conversion from a single family to a multifamily dwelling, where you go through this whole article and then you get about 3/4 of the way down and it talks about parking needing planning board approval. And planning board review. I think anything that needs planning board review, it should be listed right underneath the heading. And that would immediately tell people, because they get all, I have people come in and they go, oh, I'm gonna do it all under this. If you read down at the last thing, it says your parking lot has to be approved by a planning board. So if it's gonna be planning board approval required for a certain section, I think it should be stated right underneath that section. It makes it very clear for the resident to read it and say, okay, if I'm gonna do this, or the contractor, anybody that comes in, they'll be able to say, okay, I definitely need planning board review on this. It just eliminates the question of the person coming in with his building permit all ready to go, and I go, oh yeah, did you read all the way down to the very end? You need planning board review.
Sure.
So,
Would you make the same recommendation for anything that requires select board review?
yeah, anything that needs board review, I think
Or
it should be, anything.
Any outside body?
Any outside review other than, from, any outside review. I think it should just be maybe in parentheses underneath that this section will require whatever review it needs. Definitions, you have 2 or 3 sections of definitions. I think if you just put them all at the back of the book, all together, that's gonna really relieve some things. Building heights, you just have plain, grade plane, or you have plane. I think you should add grade plane, which is an average of the site, because you're telling people that they can have a 34-foot, and word plane, you can take at any point of the building. So if you have a walkout basement, you have 34 feet in the front, but you got 46 in the bottom because of a walkout basement, and about 42. So if you most building departments and most building zoning set grade plane as your average. So if you want to do a 34-foot, you get an 8-foot difference, so you take your 4 foot, and that's where you start your grade for your building heights. 'Cause you'll start seeing houses with much more height from the backside than you will from the front.
So in that scenario, you end up potentially with a taller house?
Right, so what you're looking for is you're setting your height at 34 feet. So if you have, say, a 10-foot difference between floors.
Right.
Framing and everything. So you got 34 feet in the front, but you look at the back of the house, you got 44 feet.
Right.
So if you set grade plane, which is an average of the two, you get a little bit more in the front, but you don't have as much in the back. So
Right.
you're setting your, instead of grade, the word grade plane, and put the definition in of grade plane.
But the way we have it now is grade.
Grade.
Would end up having a shorter house.
Well, grade, what they're gonna do at grade is they're gonna always put it in at the highest point of the grade. And that's grade. Grade can be any point of the house, it doesn't determine. Grade plane gives you your average of your site. So if you have, you know, a lot of sites, we have a lot of hilly sites, so I'm just trying to get some sort of a,
I think the way you're asking the question, I think it's gonna look the same in the front with a new definition, but it will shorten them in the back.
Right.
That'll be the net effect.
right, yeah.
So, yeah, you drive around, you see some of these houses where it's,
Yeah.
yeah, one side is just,
Yeah, your front may only
Here's
be
well.
32 feet, because, or 30 feet, because of 4-foot difference. But the house will be the 34 feet at grade plane.
So Russ, would that be the grade plane, average grade plane of the building envelope, or
Of the law,
Based
of the
on
building,
house
of the
size.
footprint, of the, where the house is going, not of the whole lot.
because that should be spelled out, right?
Right, yeah, well, grade plane, if you just use the word grade plane and do
Yeah.
the definition of grade plane being an average grade of the footprint of the house, I think that'll eliminate all the confusion there.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
So the purpose of limiting the height is for fire, basically, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yes?
That's one of the reasons, it's
What would be another aesthetics?
aesthetics. The towns don't want these giant McMansions with 60-foot houses. You got a whole neighborhood full of 30-foot houses, and now you have a couple of 60-footers in
Well,
there.
I'm only interested in the difference between the two, the back and the front that you were
Mm-hmm.
explaining to us. So if a house, for example, had 34 in the front
Mm-hmm.
and 44 in the back, is that a safety issue? That's my question.
Not really.
The fire department service of fire at that.
Well-
Because, I mean,
The fire department service, they're not gonna get a ladder truck to most of the back of the houses, they're gonna use hand ladders. So they're gonna use 35-foot ladders. They're not gonna have 45-foot ladders. If somebody has to be taken out of a window in the back of the house, it would make a difference as far as life safety is at, because the windows, the egress windows could happen to be in the back of the house, and that's where somebody would have to exit through. So, yes, I guess it could be a fire
it could be,
safety
it could be that the front is the taller side.
Right, that's,
Well, it could be either way.
aesthetically, that
Right.
could be even
I'm
more.
just saying,
Right, but I mean,
is
the
there a real
approachable
reason
side for a
for,
fire department could
what's the,
be
what's the
the
rationale
higher side
behind
too.
Right.
limiting it to 34 on both sides, or
Well,
average?
I think it's, a lot of it's just to do with, we're trying to keep the town not having these giant structures.
I think water pressure is an issue too, depending on, I don't know how far up the pumpers can pump.
Yeah.
In a lot of towns, sometimes water pressure is specifically an issue, and that's why height could be limited too, besides the ladders. It's how far up can the water actually get from a hose. So it sounds like that's more of the intent, I think, was to keep houses at more of a, you know,
Reasonable,
or an average height with surrounding areas.
yeah, because any town has a ladder truck, has a 100-foot ladder truck, but they still end up with between 32 and 36-foot maximum heights. Most towns have a height restriction. Let's see. The state of New Hampshire requires 50 feet on a shoreline setback. We have 20 feet, I think, for non-conforming structures. We can't be less restrictive than the state.
Are you talking about a setback for additional?
Waterfront structures?
Yeah, but if they're existing, non-conforming, they're existing, are you talking about additions to such?
Additions or any,
Any other
anything that's new
improvements?
construction. Even though we have, tear downs and rebuilds, they would have to, I think, make some sort of an adjustment. They need a shoreline permit. And usually the shoreline, the policy that I have is I send everybody to shoreline first, before we even go through the building department. The reasoning is that the shoreline's gonna give their opinion and their review, and if I have somebody come in and get a building permit, and I refuse them, they go to zoning, and zoning approves everything, then they apply to shoreline, and shoreline says, yeah, everything's great, just move your building 5 feet. Well, now they have to come back through zoning and back through everything else, so my normal procedure is, let's go to the state, take your project to the state, get your approvals from the state, then come to the building department, we'll deny you, and we'll send you to zoning for your variances that you meet. So I'm trying to save them a step of having to go back and reapply for zoning for change in the variance. So that's the procedure that most towns do, is they tell people, get your state permits out of the way. And then if the state says you can have your house 30 feet, and we want to give them 30 feet, then we're fine.
Because the state does deviate from its standards.
Right.
for
They have the
non-conforming law.
authority, we don't have the authority to deviate from there. We can be more restrictive, we can't be less. Septic system setbacks. I went through the setbacks, variances to 2009. There's been 19 cases that have come before the board for setback variances. 18 of them have passed. My only question is, are we too restrictive?
So,
I mean, if 18 out of 19 have passed in 10 years.
yeah, so that was last year or the year before, both boards met, and that was what we addressed, was almost all the cases going to the ZBA were
And we've had
setback
less.
variances.
And they
But
still
it-
are.
But the majority of, so, we all came together and the town passed an amendment to change that for all other structures besides the house and the septic.
Yeah, the septic, though, I
Within
don't
20 feet.
understand. The state allows 10 feet. Yeah, I think you should consider 20. 50-foot setback is a completely unreasonable setback for a septic system. There's wells that are, wells are set at 75 feet from a septic system. There's waivers given out on a daily basis. Closest I've personally seen a well is 10 feet from the berm of a septic. I've heard of them as close as 3 from other inspectors. Well, the thing is if you've got a 400-foot deep well, and you've got a septic system on top, if you think you can get contaminants through 400 feet of New Hampshire granite, soil, gravel, and everything else, it's not gonna happen. So,
Excuse me, if it follows the groundwater and connects with the pipe, it can go right down easily.
no, because the pipe only goes down 40 feet, it goes down to hard pan, then what happens?
Well, it has to go through something.
And then it goes through the ground and filters through the ground. It's, you know, it's been proven, they do waivers on a daily basis through NHDES on well setbacks. You know, I just think 50 feet, you know, you've got 50 feet and you've got 20 feet. I think it should be 10 foot for non-conforming and 20, I mean, you can do what you want with it, but you've got all these tiny postage stamp lots out around the lakes that are existing homes, they're being torn down, they're being rebuilt. And you're gonna have to, you know, they have the right to build a new house there, so you're gonna have to give them their waivers or their variances anyway, if they can't make it, because you can't deny them the right to build another house there.
They don't need a variance if they build on the same footprint.
I know, but if most of them are updating, they're building on the same footprint, but they're going up a floor, they're adding another bedroom, so they have to put a new septic in. Now, they've got a well and septic issue. Most of these shoreline permits, what they're doing, a lot of the septics were in front of the houses, they're moving them to the back, moving the houses closer to the lake. So they're working things like that, trying to, because the septic is better to be further from the lake than it is to have the house. The house has very little impact on the lake compared to the septic. So they'll give you a lot closer house to the lake on a tiny lot to get the septic further away from the lake. Well, now we've got a problem because we have a well here, and we got a well here, well there. So they do waivers, well waivers. The state signs them, and they go along with the shoreline permit, and the owners sign them. And,
Do the neighbors have to sign those too? Like if
the
you
neighbors
have a well and someone's
The
putting a
neighbors
septic
have to
close
sign them, but if they don't, the state will still give the waiver, because they're not gonna tell somebody they can't rebuild. And they're more concerned with their lake than they are with the neighbor's well. Because the chances of the water hitting the lake versus the well, it's a lot better of hitting the lake because of the,
Yeah, we do take account, and we do have the 20-foot,
yeah.
the lesser requirement on those non-conforming lots.
But you're down to, well, no, non-conforming lots on a septic. I think
It's 20 feet.
20 feet.
20.
So,
Okay.
and then lower than that, obviously, it goes to zoning, which is,
Yeah, that paragraph is really hard
Yeah.
to understand. I think I wrote to one of you guys looking for help with it recently because it just,
Yeah,
it was,
it's clunky and it's,
I mean, we're not experts, but we can find our way through stuff, and we couldn't find our way through that one.
I just
so
said,
that-
I think this is much easier to understand,
yeah.
the whole chart.
Yeah.
Stick that stuff in there.
it could be a grammar and punctuation thing as much as anything, but it's challenging. I don't know if it's
You have this-
risk of being sued challenging, but it's certainly challenging to administer.
So is that
on your
Article
behalf.
2, Section 2?
2C, is that
Yeah,
the
actually
2C,
2C.
Article 2, Section 2C? Is
Yeah,
that,
it's very, very,
the
that's,
fact
that's
that I
where
can
I
quote
said,
it to you should tell you that it's, there's something about it, because I don't know any
Sure.
of that stuff. And we went round and round with it, trying to,
yeah, we're just trying to figure out how we can answer people's questions on it. It's just that confusing. You can read it 5 different times, and that's just very difficult. And this one surprises me, that you have 40% lot coverage on a lot that you're allowing, where you're so restrictive on so many other things, and the state average is 30%. So you're allowing a lot more coverage of impervious surface. So that's something you might want to take a look at. I think 40% is a lot for a lot, especially when you get into a small lot, small
Russ,
portions.
could you point us in the direction of where that 30% data point comes up? 'Cause I'd like to take a look at that to see if it's,
Where it is in the zoning?
well, you said that most towns are at 30%.
Yeah, I have zoning ordinances from many, many towns that I've printed off over the years, and I read through them all, and I sat on the zoning board in Rye. I've presented probably 15 cases while I
Okay, so
had my
there's
discussion.
not like something that OEP did or something like that that shows,
No, the state, I believe, for shoreland is 30% too. I think that's probably where most towns took it from, because it's probably one of the only places where the state really talks about impervious surface coverage is around the water. But 40% just seems extreme. I mean, especially if you got a 7,000, 8,000 square foot lot, and you're gonna allow 40% coverage. Seems like a lot of coverage. And that's driveways, buildings, garages.
yeah, and then we have 50%
Yeah.
on the Route 4 corridor.
Yeah. It just seems like it's kind of extreme. Let's see. And then the other thing I had was on the back, was just a couple of suggested additions. I've seen these in some, they usually don't restrict them completely, but they set some sort of boundaries for adult entertainment, bookstores, things like that. Marijuana grow facilities, which a lot of towns have started to add now to their zoning, stating at least distances from schools, churches, daycare centers, things like that. I know we don't have anything right now,
Why churches?
because some towns have just chosen churches as one of the things.
I mean, I can see the kids' things,
Well, because churches have Sunday schools, things like that going on.
only on Sunday though.
Well, some of them have summer camps and CCD classes during the week and other things like that, so I think they just grouped it in with the schools, daycares, any place where children can be known to gather. A lot of churches have daycares too, so it would become.
do you have a couple of examples of some towns that you've?
Rye has some, I could get a copy of it to Joanna, I have it in my office. I photocopy it and have her send it to you, just on their restrictions. I have that one here.
Lee does too. The town of Lee, I don't
Yeah, a
know
lot of
where
it-
one, but they have the others.
Yeah, I think Portsmouth does too. And the other thing is fencing. We have a 5-foot fence setback. The state says 5 foot, everybody in the state does 6 foot, because fences come in 4 and 6 foot heights. If you want a 5-foot fence, you've got to pay a fence company to cut it down for you and rebuild it. And I think that's kind of unfair. So I think if we set the height, the maximum height at 6 foot, and then anything above that would need a variance, because it becomes a spike fence. Or if both neighbors are agreement on it, then it doesn't. Some people, their porches are just set up where that extra 2 feet would give them privacy.
Can I speak to that?
Yep.
For the planning board members, because it's really their province. So I think that's a good idea, except that if it's not on a boundary, I don't think it should be limited, because a lot of us are gardeners, and deer can jump over a 6-foot fence, but they can't jump over a 7. or 8.
Well, okay,
So
then
if
you could
if it's not in any place where it could be considered a spite fence, like out in my little meadow,
Right,
keep Bambi out, it shouldn't be I shouldn't be restricted from doing that.
okay. And the other thing I think is the property line fence.
Right, that I would agree with.
I think that if you want to do it on the property line, if both the butters are willing to sign and put a letter into the file stating that it's okay with them,
If it's taller.
no, but putting it on the boundary line. A fence without the abutter's permission should be 1 to 2 feet off the property line so you can maintain the fence. And a fence permit should be issued if both the person putting the fence up and the direct abutter agree to it being on the boundary line. I think that's a written agreement that should be added into their files, both their files.
You mean as opposed to a 1-foot
As
setback?
opposed to a 1 or 2 foot setback. Most towns do a 1 foot setback. It's just so, if you gotta go over and replace a picket and you don't get along with your neighbor, you're still on your property, it gives you a little bit of leeway.
And if you have a chain link fence, the foundations are wider than you know,
Right.
the 4-inch or 3-inch
Right.
posts, then you can dig it up without
Yeah,
digging
without-
up your neighbor's
right.
property.
But if you both sign an agreement, then the agreement goes with the property, and if the property gets sold later, the agreement is still, that's why it's in both property files, stating that the agreement was made between the owners at that time, and that's how the fence could stay on the property.
Would that be recorded?
It doesn't get recorded in the registry of deeds. I've never seen a town do it. They just usually put the letter in, and that's, if there's a, you know, most people are okay with that.
Do you usually need a survey to prove where the boundary line is?
Well, if you have both the butters signing the thing and they both work it out together, then it's usually not a problem. If the issue comes up and the neighbor says, oh no, his fence is on there, then it becomes a civil matter. It really doesn't come into our jurisdiction. You know, we can only do the best that they agree on the property line. I'd say 99% of the time, the neighbors all get along and there's not that dispute. It's that one time. And if they come in and they go, I want 1 foot off my property line, my neighbor's being a jerk, blah, 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 I think the building inspector might want to, whoever it is at that time would say, you may want to consider a survey to save yourself problems down the line. All as we can do is issue the permit and tell them that they have to stay on the line or a foot over the line. If they don't do it, it's, you know, we did our due diligence by explaining it to them in the permit process.
But there's no liability if it is allowed and we do all that and then the new neighbor comes in and where their town isn't liable
No.
at all?
No. And if the new neighbor comes in and says, well, the next time that fence is replaced, I want it a foot back, well, that's what'll happen. But for now, it stays where it is until the fence has to be replaced.
Russ, I have a question. What about, this obviously addresses manufactured fencing. What about a living fence? Somebody planning
A
over
living
trees?
fence is landscaping, it doesn't follow into this jurisdiction at all. It's a living fence.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to put a wall of arborvitaes that are 20 feet tall between you and your neighbor, have at it. Your neighbor can also go over though and trim everything that comes over onto their property off of that. So, good fences, good neighbors. I think that's pretty much the bulk of what I had for suggestions.
I think we should go back through and,
Oh, the FEMA map, so and I understand from Joanna, that's, you guys are working on FEMA and flood zone area maps now, trying to get some new ones updated, because we reference them in the zoning, but we don't have any.
Yeah, we've been updating the maps as we can.
Yeah, so it's hard to enforce something if you have.
I think we're waiting, are the final FEMA maps come out? the revised that were coming out several years ago.
Yeah, they came out
They're
2 years
finally-
ago,
they're
so
finally-
it's just a matter of
finally done?
ordering them and, having a set, at least one set, probably in the land building department, so people can come in and, the other things, what is it, the aquifer maps, I guess those are being done now too, from what I've been told recently. Because we refer to those, but we really don't have anything that is a usable map to enforce it.
All right, thank you. Chris, did you have more? I know there's
Yep,
comments on general structure and how things are organized in there for sure.
Oh, yeah, that's a throwaway line. You can do with it, what you were saying. I was actually, I didn't think the exact verbiage was gonna find its way to you.
No, it makes sense. I'm glad it was, because it made sense with the ADUs, like where we dropped it in and how it
It
dropped
needs
in.
to be its own thing, and, there may be other formatting kinds of things to it. These things, obviously, they're a patchwork. They evolve over time, and it may be worth that exercise, but whatever. The other thing that I needed to raise with you, we've swung some emails around, some of us, about, is the issuance of building permits on private roads. This is something that the select board's just starting to tackle. I talked about it Monday. As we have got into the weeds on these things and really started to pay attention to law and ordinance as we look at permits, we're really not following the law. We've not done a good job of implementing the law or the policy that the Board of Selectmen had, or the zoning ordinance, for that matter. The law says that you can't issue a building permit on a private or a Class 6 road without the Selectmen's approval. A private road is it doesn't have a legal definition, but it's pretty much any traveled way that is not a Class 5, 6, or state road. A Class 5 road is a typical town road that you probably live on. Pick a road. Guile Road's a Class 5 road. A Class 6 road is owned by the town, but it isn't maintained. We have a few of those. So the law says that if you're gonna issue a building permit on one of those roads, you need to get the selectmen's approval. Coincidentally, here in Nottingham, then the zoning ordinance says that you can't build anything on a road without frontage on a Class 5 or better road. For whatever reason, in the past, permits have been issued on private roads, Class 6 roads, for building without a variance from the zoning ordinance, without the blessing of the Board of Selectmen. So we need to fix that. We're responsible for fixing the parts about following the state law and following the zoning ordinance. The select board isn't sure how they want to do their piece of that yet, but they're headed toward some kind of approval policy and process. That, by state law, that approval process will involve the planning board. So I expect that within the next few weeks, I'll be sending you something for your input about how we implement that, how we get ourselves in line with that law in a way that makes sense for owners, for the people, the boards and the staff that have to implement it. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet, but I am going to come back to you and say, tell me what you think of this. Assuming we fix that piece, we still have people going, we will still have people going for variances for that same thing. So we are setting up, what we have set up, if we follow the rules and the law, is this parallel to approval requirement for a building on a Class 5, a Class 6, or a private road. I don't know if that is your intention. It's what it says in the ordinance. The criteria by which those things are evaluated are much different. The criteria to get a zoning variance it's very strict in the case law sense, but in the sense of just getting a building permit on a road that's already got buildings on it is actually shouldn't be that difficult to get. it's not a high bar to say that you're not impacting the character of the neighborhood, or you're not, doing anything to the public health and safety. There's no impact there. There's very clearly a hardship if you have a lot that there's a perfectly functioning road there, or at least fairly functioning private or Class 6 road there. It's an easy hurdle. And you're nodding, and you envision most of them. There are cases that are not so easy, but most of the things that we are seeing are, we just talked about conversions on the small parcels around the lakes. That's where most of our private roads are. There are remaining parcels around two, maybe three of the lakes, two of the lakes that are still vacant. The variance, I don't know how valuable it is. I don't know what the ordinance is trying to achieve with that. You may want to look at that. I think it was probably envisioned as, let's make sure we have 200 feet of frontage, just for spacing purposes. You've got a frontage requirement. I don't know if it envisioned that requiring property owners to get two separate approvals for the same thing, and that's what we're setting people up to do. That's okay, it's legal, but you may want to, at the same time you think about the criteria that the select board's going to use and that the planning board is going to weigh in on, you might want to think about how do we get the zoning ordinance to line up with the state law.
I just have a question, Chris. I'm not familiar at the top of my head with our ordinance language about condominiums, but I know of condominium projects in other towns where the roads are basically private once you're in the condominium area. And would this zoning also restrict any kind of improvements in that situation? I can't think of any condos in Nottingham, but I'm sure we have them somewhere. We haven't seen any cases.
Yeah, I don't know that our ordinance envisions that. I think if it came across our desk, we'd say this needs a variance because it's, it's X number, it's so far from a Class 5 road, the entrance road to a condo association, for example.
No, I'm not talking about condos on a Class 6 road. I'm talking about the road within the condominium area that is plowed by that is maintained and plowed by the condominium association and not the town. I think Lee has condo projects like that. And so then, therefore, what would happen to those people who wanted to, put a patio in their condo or somehow improve it? If we didn't allow, would they also have to, would that be considered a private road? I guess it would be.
I think it probably
I think it would be considered a private road, but it would be approved through the planning board as a condo. I think condo would
The
have to
initial
go.
approval is very clear. That would be through subdivision approval or whatever the planning board process applies there. After the fact, though, I think is what you're
Right, it's
envisioning.
exactly what I'm questioning. How would that road be, even though, let's say they're brand new and, they're all up to snuff, and now suddenly they're being treated like they're not on a good road, and maybe they have a better road than town roads, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't think you're gonna get like an individual condo owner to put a porch on that's different because with condos.
Well, you're assuming that all
everything-
condos are attached. I know of condos that are detached.
But still, everything has to go through an association approval, and they're very, very particular about everything looking the same. So,
They can be any way that they're structured. They can vary greatly as to what they allow.
I think I don't
I mean,
think
it's
from what I know of our ordinance, I don't think it anticipates that at all, and it's silent on it.
yeah.
Right.
And I think our default would probably be to kick it to the zoning board just in case.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's hard without an example.
Yeah, we'd have to see
Yeah.
an application and what they wanted to do and what they needed relief from. I mean, if they didn't need relief from, it says habitable space. So if they want to build a deck, the deck's not habitable space, so therefore they don't need permission from the,
They already have
Board
a
of
dwelling
Selectmen.
unit there.
So it's basically habitable space. Because if you have a house on a Class 6 or a private road and you want to tear it down and build it back in the same footprint, we don't have to go through that procedure with the Board of Selectmen.
But there could be situations where individual condominium owners could improve their property in a
Well,
way
if they
that
wanted
adds
to
space.
add
That
habitable
could happen.
space, then they would probably fall
Yeah.
underneath that ordinance.
Yeah, I think the law that dictates going to the Board of Selectmen for a building permit is for the construction of new residences, is the language.
Okay, so that
And
would,
that's been interpreted a little bit more broadly than that, to something more like an increase in habitable space is a fair interpretation of that. You need a permit to put a generator in, that doesn't apply. You don't need to go to the Board of Selectmen to get a permit to put a generator next to your
A
place.
garage, it even doesn't even kind of.
Right, a garage wouldn't count either, because it's not a new residence. The point of the law is to limit the impact on public services and the potential for creating demands for new Class 5 roads. It's trying to prevent one-by-one development of neighborhoods at the end of a Class 6 road without any formal planning involvement. So that's what this is the purpose of that law.
So I guess once the procedure from the Board of Selectmen is dialed in, then we could change the zoning ordinance. Because right now, the zoning ordinance is standing as,
That's the only thing we have right now.
Right.
And we'll have something in place long before it's time to look at the zoning ordinance again. We're moving pretty quickly on this piece, but we actually have a case that's kind of hung up in that right now, and you and I have to talk offline about that, but it was wait a minute, we're not following the law, we gotta get in line here, but we've got stuff in the pipeline that's impacted, so we're gonna muddle through here over the next month, but we'll be back to you with some kind of both a policy and a process. This is pretty process intensive for an applicant, and we need to keep that in mind.
Well, when you're talking about a lot of those lots, you know, a lot of them are on the lake or just around the lake, so it's gonna be process intense no matter what, because they're gonna have shoreline permits to deal with, DES permits, the septic.
Well, that's it, so you're looking
all
at
those.
almost 6 months before they can. think
Right,
about
so, I
it.
mean, this is one piece of it, and obviously, we don't wanna just unduly, weigh it down. I see the point of having it go to ZBA being, there being, you know, a judicial type board, and, up until now, selectmen were up until 2 years ago, were a 3-person board versus a 5 to 7-person board. So I could see back, at that point, it was probably a good idea to make sure the ZBA weighed in on it, because you had more people, you know, judicial.
Well, the ZBA has to weigh in it by the ordinance. It has
Right.
nothing to do with the selectman's opinion about the policy or the procedure. The zoning ordinance says you gotta go there, and the selectmen don't get a say in that. So, we have these two approval paths that have to be met. It just so happens we've been falling down on both of them. But
Right, but didn't the selectmen designate the ZBA a few years ago as the
they did,
purveyors
but
of
that isn't legal enough.
Right.
It's dodging its responsibility under the law, that the law doesn't give them the option to do that. And it's not due process for an applicant. If you're, on that ZBA path that we have now, that's pretty clear, you do that kind of stuff all the time. On the Board of Selectmen path, if you're denied by the Board of Selectmen, denied a building permit on a private or Class 6 road, you can appeal to the ZBA. So the way we have it set up right now, with our state law and our zoning ordinance, you could conceivably have an applicant going to the ZBA for approval, going to the Board of Selectmen for approval. If denied, going to the ZBA and being evaluated on the same question on 2 separate criteria. How likely it is, I don't know, but it's theoretically nuts and possible. So we need to think through that.
You were saying, oh, sorry. You were saying that I think the law states the planning board can comment, but that's the only.
Yeah, either, different towns do it different ways, and the select board talked about different ways we might do it. You can do it on a case-by-case basis, where every single case would come to the planning board for review, and I don't know what the exact language of the statute is, but the planning board needs to weigh in on it somehow and get its opinion to the select board before the select board makes its decision. You can do that on a case-by-case basis, you can do that on a blanket basis, you can do it on a road-by-road basis. There's lots of ways you can get to that approval, and then we haven't decided that yet. But at some point in that process, whichever process it is, the planning board's gonna be involved.
In applications for subdivisions relative to private roads, planning board sees a lot of abutter confusion on their rights to that private road, that the planning board can't answer them because we don't have specific deed language, all of the background of how that private road was established to make those connections. So some of that puts us in or us with the applicant in a hard space.
If we had any of that information, we'd be happy to help you with it, but in many cases, we don't either.
Right.
There are roads in town, private roads, that you'd need a paralegal and a couple lawyers to spend a good chunk of time at figuring out who owns it, who has the right to travel over it, where it is. Those are unclear, very unclear in some cases, and is a significant problem for us long-term.
So in those cases where the applicant's unable to provide clarity, would that be a good idea to make that a condition of approval, that they show that, you know, there's legal access to their site or?
That's a very reasonable thing to put in a approval process for a new permit. If you're gonna burden the road even further with a new residence, you ought to be sure that you know where the road is and who's gonna maintain it, and, you know, who owns it and who has a legal right to travel over it. That's a fair thing.
Something they mentioned in the Hard Roads Conference this year is that we actually don't have to approve developments on private roads.
Correct.
So that could be that you're not really stopping anybody. It's the state says if you don't want to as a town, you don't have to approve it. So that could be a pretty good stopgap.
So would we would not accept that application?
If they
or
can't prove the ownership of the road, we could,
deny?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, the select board could deny.
Theoretically, the select board could just blanket deny all building permits on private and class 6 roads, and then those would be, that blanket denial would be appealed to the ZBA and judged there. That's another plausible outcome. I don't think it's likely from what I heard from our board this week, but it's possible.
So I pulled up, hard road to travel's minimum road access requirements under state law, and one of the roads that are allowed are a road shown on a plat approved by the planning board. So to me, that would cover my question about condominiums, that they would have been approved by the planning board, even if it remained private, it would still be allowed.
That is, yeah, that could be, it's 641 something.
674-41.
46, that's where 41 comes from. That lists, roads approved by the planning board, roads that show on the official map.
Right.
There's 3 or 4 categories in that statute. One of those categories is a private road, so you're in a gray area there with your condo question still.
A road shown on a plat approved by the planning board it's allowed, according to this document.
Yeah, something that was
I don't think there are any condos
pre-approved by
that
the
are,
planning board, yes.
yes, I don't think there are very many condos that aren't approved by a planning board. You know, those projects are all post-zoning.
Yeah, I don't probably, yes.
I mean, I remember when there was no zoning, okay.
Yeah.
So I think that they're covered. I mean, they would be fine.
I think, again, we'd have to, see what the application would be. I mean,
We're right.
if it's condominium association that has 4 condominiums with a driveway in and some parking spaces, is that really a road or is it a driveway versus a condominium complex with 40 different homes that have different kind of roadway networks?
I think what it's saying is, if the planning board approved it on a plat, which gets recorded, then it would not be restricted in the same way that private roads, class 6 roads are worse.
Logically, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me, because they would be engineered up to some standards.
Yeah, but the gray area around what's a driveway and what's a private road is, that's evident here in town too. A shared driveway versus a private road. You know, one man's driveway is another man's
Nightmare.
private road, so.
If they have 2.
Yeah, one man's shared driveway is another man's private road, and there's no legal definition of either, so. Anyway, so we beat that horse for a while, but we'll be back to you on that one. The second thing I want to throw out, this is more a planning board than a zoning board thing, but anytime I have the opportunity to talk to you about the zoning ordinance, I would again ask you to put on your things to discuss, is the zoning of the Route 4 industrial commercial corridor. There are parcels for sale, there are town-owned parcels there that are going to be going for sale. You should discuss the possibility of large-scale residential development on Route 4, and if it's something you want. We're running out of land on Route 4, and it's our last chance to get any commercial and industrial development in town. And the zoning board is gonna be hard pressed to deny of residential uses if somebody takes ownership of those parcels and wants to put residences there. You're dealing with a what, six lot subdivision on Route 4 right now. There's a lot of demand for it, and we're running out of time, so there's my plug.
And we've discussed as a board that that's one of our priorities to look at, kind of a top three, which we've already knocked out a couple of the top ones as far as some transportation recommendations.
Yeah,
so we're getting right on that.
Yeah, I mean, we recently acquired two good-sized, one humongous parcel that you're familiar with, another mid-sized parcel on Route 4 by tax deed. We hold another one across the street from that. Across from the former USA Springs parcel, there's a 50-something acre parcel that I think is still on the market. Everybody that I talk to, with the smaller parcels in particular, has residential components in mind when they're looking at those. There's demand for it.
Chris, are you gonna have public hearings on what to do with that former USA Springs land, so people can weigh in?
There'll be some public, yeah, the board right now is working on a couple of, we're still in the 3-year window where the former owner can pay the taxes, or a party, party with interest in the property can regain ownership of it. We're working on a couple angles that relate to that, not appropriate to talk about publicly, but that is limiting our options, and we're trying to work our way through that. The board's intention is to get that property into private hands and on the tax rolls as quickly as reasonably possible. But if it's a open market thing, or once it leaves the town's control, there's all kinds of possibilities of what could be put there.
Right, like you say, this is our opportunity to be able to shape the future of that whole corridor, and it might be a good mixed-use development with some real affordable housing, which, where in Nottingham are we gonna have affordable housing besides there?
ADUs.
Even ADUs?
That's a discussion for that half of the table, but we need commercial and industrial tax base.
Shouldn't the selectmen
Desperately.
have public hearings so that we, the people of the town of Nottingham, can weigh in on the future of that?
I'll let them, there'll be public input before anything.
At the appropriate time, yeah.
But with that said, though, so even if we do have that on our plate for our agenda for this year, that's one of the ticket items. So even if we do them in the zoning, we hold public hearings and we approve it, it kind of becomes law at that point until town vote. If it's overturned at town vote, then it's off. Could it be just deed restricted at sale by the town?
Depending on the situation around that prior owner's rights.
Oh, because it's
Yes.
the time frame. Yeah, got it. Okay.
We have, that's one of those little sniggly things that, you'd like to think you just deed restrict it and sell it and away we go. In the first 3 years, it's not that easy
Bankruptcy,
for
right.
us. That is the board's desire. I think I can say that for the board, that they're on the same page as you in that regard, but, coming out of that tax deeding and bankruptcy process, it's not that simple.
So I have one more question, if I could jump back to the roads, because Peter's question reminded me that, to ask, when the selectmen make a policy, such as they're working on for the private roads, does that have a public hearing component, or is that just their workshop? And if
No,
it doesn't
there
have a
is-
public hearing component, can they somehow, could you ask them to keep these two boards apprised of what they're considering?
Oh, yeah, we're.
So that we
yeah,
can weigh in if we,
Oh, yeah,
from
no,
our
that's,
perspective
that's,
as board
that's what I'm
members.
doing tonight, is saying, I'm gonna come back to you with this and say,
Right.
we need your, before we implement this, we need your feedback,
okay.
right? Is that fair? Yes.
I'm sorry, would that need town meeting approval as well?
No.
No, that's
The
not-
state law gives the board the right to do it pretty much any way they want within the case law.
Yeah, that's what I thought. They don't even have to share it with us if they don't want to, but
They have to consult with the planning
Democratic.
board, but they want to, it's new, we want to get some input on it, so
Yeah, but there's an open
we'll
meeting
ask you for
thing.
that.
Yeah, so as part of that process, I'm sure it's probably, or it may be going to legal counsel for review. Maybe they can expand the purview of the question to try to encompass it so we all, you know, we can see how the zoning component should fit in the planning board component. And the
Yeah,
BOS
we've
component. So
done
we
all
can-
that,
Perfect.
and it's going to come down to judgments about how involved and, you know, how restrictive boards want to be.
And usually those get initiated, right, you know, through Joanna or through that office, you know.
The
any
permit
applications.
applications? Yeah.
So we should make sure that we have it integral with planning application, checklists, those kind of things, to make sure we have the right flow path for approvals.
Yeah, one of the selectmen were looking at a workflow thing from another town's policy. That's what we're going to come back with, is something like that.
I have a related question. There seems to be a growing trend of people doing things without approvals and even without building permits. So how's the selectmen, I mean, it's a growing trend. You doing anything to address that?
We hired Ross, but he's leaving us.
Well, one person can't do the whole town by himself, especially if he's part-time.
Especially the size of our town and all of the areas that are out.
We caught,
Building whole roads by them without permits.
catching quite a few though. You know, the major violators we seem to catch. Board members contact me and call me when they see things. We have other citizens, residents that just send in random letters or make phone calls and say, geez, you know, I noticed something going on over here. Haven't seen any permits in the windows. I've really been advocating to the people, let's get the permits in the windows so you don't get complaints. And, you know, we caught some pretty good sized violations and got people back on track. A couple of them are still awaiting with state problems with shoreline, a giant shoreline violation that's gonna take, maybe not even be settled for another year. So, you know, it is, and people, since I've been here, people are coming forward and saying, hey, oh, I did this and I need a permit. So I think the assessors being out too has brought some attention to it, and they, you know, they're getting their property looked at, and the assessor's making all these notes, and the next day they're in my office going, well, you know, I finished my basement, or I did the room upstairs, and I need to get a permit for it. So I think, you know, having the building inspector out there and people knowing that he's out there working, and whoever comes in after me, I'm sure if he continues the route that we're on, I think it's gonna benefit the town. And people they've kind of got the idea now that they need a permit. If I'm driving down the road and I see a truck with a load of lumber in the yard and I know there's no permit, I have no problem stopping and saying, hey, what's going on? What you building?
Yeah, but you're leaving tomorrow.
Yeah, but I'm
what
still doing
happens.
my job though till I leave, so.
Be months before you have somebody else, I don't know.
Well, no, I think,
maybe it's just a builder home for lunch.
yeah, well, not if there's a pile of lumber in the yard and a dumpster next to it. But, you know, the community, I think, has helped a lot, and the board members, you guys are out there, you're on roads, different roads, you're commuting through town. If you see something, call the office. You know, takes nothing for me to look it up online, see if we have a permit first. If we don't, it's just a matter of, I'm gonna be in that area sometime that week, I'll drive by and stop in.
Starting tomorrow, who will answer the phone? Joanna?
I'm here tomorrow.
After tomorrow, like I say.
We will have somebody in place. We're using an interim, we posted the position yesterday or today.
Maybe we should be a little stronger with the punitive actions if people continue to do this, because there's, you know, I mean, they usually end up getting what they want anyways, and yeah, maybe they have to pay a couple $100 fine, but it doesn't seem to be.
Well, from a strictly building permit, if there's no no zoning violations or things that impact the neighbors, and it's just I just finished my basement without a permit, our primary motivation there is to make sure that we're in, with the life safety codes, we wanna make sure that things are up to code. We're not in the business of, we're not in the punitive business, we're not using this as a revenue generating thing. We just wanna make sure that stuff is built to code, so it's safe, that's really the,
It's all about life safety.
that's all that matters. We're not in the gotcha business.
Last month.
Yeah, you pay more for an after-the-fact permit. And sometimes you gotta cut open a wall and, you know, show something, but, this is a life safety exercise more than a gotcha exercise.
There's a couple of cases last month where property owners did major construction and stripping down hills and building roads. And now, you know, what's gonna happen? They're just gonna be delayed.
One of
and
them
they're
is
gonna go
getting their
forward?
walls opened tomorrow, and if they fail 10% of the inspection, the whole project comes out and they start over. That's the result
They
of
can still
that.
get their approvals to move forward with it, even though.
Well,
they've already
no,
done all
what they
this
get
work.
is they get an inspection in walls at my discretion that they will open up. And if they do not meet code, then the whole project comes out and they start it over. And we're talking a couple $100,000 worth of work.
But what if in these two cases, they're doing major changes to the landscaping and the character of the community, and
Well, the other one is in front of the Attorney General's office for
one
the,
of them is, yeah.
One's at the Attorney General's office and one went to the zoning board.
so we are enforcing it as best we can.
And that's as far as your staff can go.
But how do you put it back? How do you put back a whole hill that's been
Oh,
torn
it's
away?
done all the time, done all the time.
Well, I'd be surprised to see it done.
Well, that's up to the boards that have it.
That's in DES's hands or your hands. I mean, those are.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out.
All right, I'd like to move on to some other, maybe some input, interaction between the two boards, and I'd like to open it up to the zoning board to see if there are any comments regarding any of the planning applications that have come through that have needed zoning variances or something like that. Any issues that might be germane for this board to know?
I think over the last couple of years, the process and procedures gotten cleaner, and I think people have been guided the right way, and I think that's been not an issue.
Yeah, and although we are meeting in this joint meeting, there is a lot of interaction outside of these meetings relative to the two boards, so this isn't the only one time a year that we ever talk.
Right.
I think being on both boards, one of the things that will be very helpful for all of us is, as I mentioned, this chart piece here for the setbacks. And the clearer we can have it in our minds, and the community at large can have it, along with the building envelope or buildable space, or however we end up wording that, having that piece as well in something like this, so people can see fit for building envelope, whatever we want to call it. That will save a lot of
Frustration and aggravation on
Yes.
both sides, both the applicant and the board, absolutely.
and with their, respective or
Disrespected.
surveyors.
Like, for example,
Surveyors.
under that chart specifically, kind of state the contiguous area is the area fit for the placement of a dwelling and setback.
Yeah, that needs to be, yes,
So
exactly.
50 feet, basically.
And maybe even just put in on something like this, what exactly we're looking for that. This space must contain house, septic, well, whatever it is we're looking for within that. I'm kind of like not totally into it so much today to specify it out, but that needs to be there, so that we can just say, well, it says it right here, and you're not showing it on here.
Yeah, because like this chart isn't even right. So the habitable structures, it's 50 feet, front, rear, sides. It's all.
I think those are just examples.
Yeah. The accessories is where you get the 50, 20, 20, that's right.
Also, we sort of have to interpret the ordinance in most of our cases. And I think that Chris touched on this a little bit, and I think that Russ touched on it a little bit. I think the whole ordinance could really benefit from maybe hiring an editor or somebody to reorganize it so that it flows a little better, so that you can find things a little more easily. Because parts of it are disjointed, and I know that comes from adding onto it, when we add onto it, just like just like the laws I have to deal with about elections, you know, sometimes they conflict. One law will conflict with another law. And I think sometimes, I'm not saying our ordinance conflicts, but often it's confusing. And I think that could be corrected by somebody who's a editor or,
I think we just had that so perfect example, the aquifer, not the overlay district, what we just talking about? Was it?
aquifer and,
They were trying to
flood
figure out
zone.
if it really fits as an overlay district. Was it the aquifer that we were talking about? And where steep slopes, if we do a steep slopes, originally we had it as an overlay district. And think, does that make sense? Because it's not gonna be a map. It's just gonna be, the overlay is anywhere it's shown on basically soil survey of being 25% or greater, or whatever the slope percentage or greater. So it's we run into that, and it's a great thing, great idea. If we had the whole thing kind of edited, some stuff might fall in a little bit easier.
To add to that, I think editing a hard copy works, but I also think with technology and internal references to definitions and other ways for the online version, that could be helpful.
Could be cleaned up.
Yeah. So you'd have your definition section, but wherever it's referenced within the body of the document, maybe you could have it connect back to the definitions.
Yeah,
You just
I
click
was
on it, brings
thinking
you
of the
back.
old kind of editor, but I'm sure there's software that could help.
So Dirk, that was gonna be my question, is what's the next step process-wise? Because I'd be willing to help if you guys are gonna attack this via subcommittee.
Yeah, I think that's what we're leaning towards. We're two things that we're doing right now that are kind of primary, is we're trying to get into updating the master plan. So I'm gonna just plug that for a second, is that we're trying to develop a master plan subcommittee that has a zoning board member or two planning board members, public members. We're trying to, we'll get some notifications out and try and solicit some interest of community members to get into the master planning sessions that we're gonna do. The other piece is definitely dealing with some of these zonings and rewriting of the zoning pieces, because there has been a lot of that confusion and some of the communications from this. That is the next step, is really trying to do that. Not only the zoning language, but zoning maps, making sure that we have the right zones in the right spots. Because it's pretty minimalistic, other than, residential agriculture. So that's a subcommittee we'll get started here, and I'll put you on it, or you're on it.
There you go.
I guess vice versa, any planning board members have kind of a zoning board comment or question?
No, I know we had talked about it at a prior meeting, and we didn't have it on our list, I don't think, about if we should add a setback for driveways and roads, new roads and driveways. Because right now, if it's a common driveway, obviously it's supposed to be on the boundary, but other than that, if you have an existing lot with an existing home, and then the subdivision comes through, they could potentially have a driveway go right next to your property.
Yeah, we
Right on the line.
did see an application, I think, last year, the year before, and this is in where there's two parcels next to each other, and if the next parcel is going to be a subdivision, if they put their access road all the way to the abutting property line, then that road could be right up against the property line, without a setback into their lot, which would put it basically in the backyards of potentially the abutters. So that's what you're referring to, right? There isn't currently no setback.
Right.
But isn't that really a function of where the state gives the building, the driveway permit?
Only if it's on a state
Only
road,
if it's on a state road.
otherwise it's us.
And that's where the cut is. That doesn't mean that's where the driveway needs to go.
Right.
Could we direct a question to Russ on other towns? Do they have that?
Setbacks for driveways? Not really. Most people, for the most part, unless it's usually a sloped reason or something like that, they don't put it right on the property line. And the driveway's on the property line and you got a 50-foot setback for the house, you're still 50 feet away.
If it's a,
If it's a conforming lot, no, it's still 20 feet away.
but if it's a lot that's already in existence, you may have a house that's, you know, it's right on their own property line.
Right now, there's nothing in the zoning here.
Right.
Most towns, I don't think I've seen anything really. Most towns do is the DPW goes out and they issue the driveway permit. And it's got to do with grades and culverts and things like that and the best possible view line. Like the state requires a 400-foot view on either side. We have a driveway. That's what they're looking for, is 400 feet of clear shot, so you can see oncoming traffic on a state road. That's why most towns have the DPW director do the driveways, because they're the ones that come in and say, okay, I want a culvert here because water, we got runoff here, we want a culvert head on this end. We don't need a culvert head on this end because it's just gonna dump out. And they usually set the locations. There's usually like a 13 or a 14-foot restriction on the width of the driveway is what most towns are working with. So, single driveway.
We don't have that in our process right now.
No, what I'm saying, so we don't have anything, so basically you can do what you, what I do for a driveway permit at this point, what I've been doing is going out and suggesting that they tell them that they have to put a culvert. If I've got a clear run of water, I require a culvert. So that's all I can do at this point.
I just wanted to ask, if we were to have our DPW do it, do we have somebody working for the town that would be like in charge of the DPW or would be able to provide that?
It would be the road agent or the
Do we have a road
DPW.
agent or,
No,
Not today, no.
or so much for that option?
Well, I've been doing it anyway, so.
We do need a road agent though, don't we? Huh?
Just go
But we
back,
are dealing with at
He's
least
the
the culverts and the
plug man
runoff problem, so we don't end up
Well,
with
we have
wash.
problems that we need to be addressing here if we're gonna make progress.
We're working on it,
and
Peter.
just going back to that though, you know, so someone might wanna put a woodshed up on their house, on their yard, and they have to make sure they're at least 20 feet from the property line, but a driveway that may, or even a road that's potentially much more, has much more of an impact on neighbors, we don't have any kind of
Yeah.
setback. I know, like, if
I
the
think
neighbor's
20
driveway's
feet.
close, it's usually a sight line, you know, we don't want two driveways right next to each other, there's a distance thing, but,
We actually have had a plan recently where I remember us talking about the driveways, they were gonna be having them like right next to each other. And we talked with them about that.
yeah, for a new plan, right,
Right,
so,
it was like, why do you have these driveways right near each other? It's like you could wave as you're like going down your driveway.
Was that the one on Route 4 though?
I don't remember
right,
that.
Because
that's
that's
if there's,
state.
that's if there's two driveways, but in the case where there's no, the driveway may not be there, but it's just the property line. and just
State
trying
will
to-
try to group driveways together on a state road versus having them spread way out. So if there's multiple properties, the drive by side, because it's one entry point into the state road. So they try to limit the amount of entry points.
Right.
So if you have
If they-
a subdivision or something like that going into, they're gonna try to group the driveways together on their permitting process.
I think 20 feet would be a reasonable setback for a driveway.
I think adding it into the, not structures, but adding it in there would probably be a good fit, is just avoid that even coming up as a question, especially
We
if
just
you say
add it-
driveways or roads.
Add it into the table.
Right.
What'd you say,
Yeah.
20
Driveway
feet?
setback.
Yeah, like an accessory structure.
Any new driveway or road? Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously, the road would be the bigger of the two there. I remember that was a big issue with the plan that had come in, it was a major subdivision, and you know, obviously the applicant was trying to get enough frontage on the road to have two access points, so they were squishing everything right onto the property lines.
But if the state requires it, should they have to come to the zoning board?
That wasn't the state's only for the,
State roads?
roads.
Right, but there can be subdivisions on state roads.
Yeah, the subdivisions
They have
have
the
to
same
come to the
setbacks,
planning
right.
board.
Right,
Yeah. Subdivisions will have to come to the planning board, and anything that is a variance would then have to come to the zoning board. If they don't need it.
I was just wondering if you could accept out where the state requires such things. so that people don't have to come for something we're gonna give them, probably, if the state allows it or requires it.
I think
Same.
you're saying there's the potential that if we're saying 20 feet, the state may provide.
Like that example you guys were just talking about, 2 driveways together, and you said maybe it was on Route 4.
Yeah.
And the state, and he said the state requires them to be together, then they're gonna be in violation of the 20-foot setback.
No, in that case, the state requires them to be shared.
What you could do is just write the
Write that into-
ordinance.
into the
to
ordinance
say
is what I'm
On
suggesting.
town roads.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
town.
In that
roads.
case, the state would require it to be a shared driveway,
I would
usually
just-
required to be a shared driveway instead of
roads.
2
Yeah.
access points.
Town roads.
Right, let the state do the state, we'll do the rest.
That makes sense.
Yep. Any other comments or questions from the planning board relative to zoning? Any other comments kind of overall?
I had 2. One on the ADU, I looked up ADUs on all of our surrounding towns, all of our abutting towns. Every one of them was 1,000 square feet. 750 is the state minimum. We can't go any smaller than that.
Right. And I think that's what initially set it for us when we put it in, was just, that's what the state was, that's what we put in. But yeah, it's interesting that everybody else is using 1,000.
There's 1,000, most of them are 1,000. A couple of them have a complex formula about, and to me, that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
40%.
At what point does it shift to a duplex? I mean,
Yeah.
there should be a requirement then, based on square footage, that it's no longer considered an ADU.
It's
considered
not
a
in
duplex.
violation of the law.
Right.
I understand, but I'm saying, we have specific zoning about multifamily, duplex in frontage and lot size.
Do we allow
required.
multifamily and single-family zones?
Yes,
Yes.
but with additional acreage and additional frontage and additional contiguous area, upland, basically. So at what point, if we keep increasing the ADU size above and beyond the state's minimum, what point are we just really calling duplexes ADUs? And getting them up, so someone's got a loophole around our duplex.
I think most duplexes are way more than 1,000 feet.
Well, it would be, it'd be 1,000, that's 2,000 square feet.
No, but I mean.
Or 1,000 and.
Well, that's assuming that they're both equal, which is not necessarily true. Can you fit 2 bedrooms in 750 square feet? Probably not very gracefully.
Absolutely.
You can.
Absolutely.
What sizes are they?
Yeah, it's 12 by 13 bedrooms. People are going, bedrooms, new houses I'm seeing are starting to come down. They're not as big as they used to be, because people spend less and less time. They're more interested in a family room, a bonus room, or a great room. So they're cutting the sizes of some of the bedrooms and going for bigger alternate rooms in the house. So there's a family room and a great room. And that's where people are spending most of their time. But 750 square feet is reasonable, because what you're trying to do is create an accessory dwelling unit, not a duplex or a multifamily home. And the idea of the 750 square feet is the ability, part of the requirements of an accessory dwelling unit is to have the ability to turn that back into a single-family home. If you start doing 1,000, 2,000, 1,500 square foot units, it's really, you're gonna end up with all these 4,000 square foot homes in town if people start turning them back.
Well, if you look at a house that has a 30 by 30 footprint, that's 900 feet. It's just shy of 1,000.
Right. And that's
So
a
it's like
decent-
converting one floor of the house.
Right.
Dad gets downstairs, everybody else gets upstairs. So I don't think it's unreasonable to go to 1,000, especially when now
Well,
neighbors.
I'm just explaining why the 750 is, the whole intention is that you're supposed to be able to turn it back into a single-family residence.
But if that were the case, the state would have made that the maximum, not the minimum.
It doesn't, it says shall not exceed 750 square feet.
Which
That's not the
version
law.
is that?
Yeah,
That's
no.
not the law. It's-
What's the
It's
date on that?
750 is a minimum.
750 is the minimum.
It
It's
says
the
shall not
minimum
exceed.
you can
Well,
restrict
this
it
is from
to.
2016.
People
Yeah,
could-
there's a new one from
Yeah.
17, July of last year.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
been
they've amended
rewritten.
that a couple of times.
What else you got, Mike?
The other one was the suggested addition, the adult entertainment, the marijuana dispensary. Are we allowed to grow marijuana in New Hampshire?
Yes, there's
Yeah.
medical marijuana in
Oh, okay. I didn't even know.
That's why towns have started,
Only in our residential and agriculture.
We have
Not
a
say
clean
that on
neighborhood.
TV.
that's why a lot of the towns have started adding it to this.
Yeah.
Whereas the-
So my piece is, if you take a look at the Malachi Glen case, so the way that our current language is it says what you're allowed to do. So these are not in, so the way our current zoning ordinance is written, these two things aren't allowed anywhere in town. If you
Without
want to do
variance.
these, you'd have to come for a special exception of the zoning board.
well, they're not allowed in the commercial zone?
Nope, nope.
Says that in that zoning?
It says,
Only
our
allowed
our
uses.
zoning lists just allowed uses, anything else by special exception to the zoning board. So if you wanted to do this, you'd have to come to the zoning board.
Okay.
So it's currently not allowed, is in my thing. So the problem is if we add this is now a negative language, right? So now I want to have a marijuana grow facility. I come to you and I say, I want a special exception for this. The Malachi Glen case and the decision from the Supreme Court is very clear in that I can't use the reason they're applying for their special exception as the reason I deny them. So this, to me, when we go this language route, we
can't
take
deny
away
them.
our best argument.
Well, see, it's an agricultural town, if I buy 20 acres next door to the school and say, I'm putting an agricultural marijuana grow facility in there, you can't stop me, because it's not in there, and it's an agricultural.
But it's not an allowed use.
It's not
It's
allowed use.
agricultural. It is allowed. It's an
Agriculture's sacred.
agricultural, in an agricultural district. You lose. Go to court, you lose.
You can't grow,
No.
can you grow medical marijuana in New Hampshire or just dispense it?
No, you can grow it. They have to grow it in this state. They can't import it. It's illegal. It's federal law.
Well, it's illegal, the whole thing is illegal under federal law.
Yes, but you can't
There's
import it from another
several,
state under
there's
federal
several
law.
large-scale grow facilities.
Malachi Glen still leaves the character of the neighborhood test in there, though, doesn't it? I mean, it's not,
Right, but
you can't alter the character of the neighborhood,
correct.
so
Right.
you still have that protection from.
Yes, but if you say, I want a special exception to do this, where it's not in there, then we can't say, no, we don't allow marijuana grow facilities. I have to come up with a lot of other reasons.
Well, I think though the winning case on that is, I want to do an agricultural use in an agricultural district. And you haven't, as a board, got a leg to stand on. It's an agricultural use. You can say, we don't want it within 2,000 feet of a school.
Is medical marijuana
Agricultural.
defined as an agricultural use? I
That
don't know
would,
that it
Where
is.
yeah, I don't know either. I'd have to look at that.
Yeah.
Well,
We didn't walk in anticipating a solution to that, so
yeah, I just
throw that on your
threw a
plate for this year
suggestion
and talk.
that you may want to limit where it could be, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Right,
You know, distances from
implies you
schools.
allow it.
right.
And he's saying you have to allow it. I think that's a question we need to get answered.
Yeah, I think that's a legal question we need to have answered.
But what Mike just explained was my understanding too, that if we put it in there, that this is restrictive, it makes it more difficult to
Deny it.
deny it. We have to prove it more, that's my understanding.
Right.
Regardless, though, we would have difficulty denying because we have to allow as long as it's not going against anything.
It is currently it does go against it because it's not a permitted use.
But then we would have to, except for special exceptions, and if they come to us for one, then we have to say why it's not allowed.
We list the uses that can be permitted by special exception. They're in the ordinance.
No, we list what is allowed.
That's what I'm saying. We list what's allowed.
Yeah, but we're saying that if you want a special exception, they go before the board. So if there's something we don't want in town, hope y'all are hearing this, we don't want those things.
That's one person's opinion.
Well, not
Just
by
for the
board.
record.
At least not near our schools. So once again, we want to control where these type of
But anyway,
businesses would be.
what would we say?
It's not a permitted use by special exception. We have a list of things that are permitted.
I think the point is, it's the case law that.
Exactly, it's the Supreme
that-
Court decision in the Malachi Glen case, is you can't use the reason they're applying for the special exception as the reason you deny them. That's the big takeaway from the Malachi Glen case. And I think we just need to be careful, that's all I'm saying, is
I
you
think
gotta
we'd
take
be
a look.
losing on either way. I
Other
agree-
towns
I
have
agree
figured
with
out
you,
ways
it's
to
a no.
do this within Malachi Glen, so. we don't
I'm
need to
gonna get you
solve it
guys a
tonight,
copy
but
of what they've written in the other zoning ordinances, so you can take a look at
It will
those.
turn the zoning ordinance into an extra 15 pages to do it right, because you have to list so many permitted uses.
And then you've gotta keep,
Right, so
Going
that's a
with the things you
policy
don't
decision
allow.
for you, but
Right.
Right, we
it's,
should be confident.
What a lot of towns have done now is they've come through and they've listed the list of special exceptions that they will accept. And then they don't have to hear anything that's not on that list.
Well, that's what we're saying.
That's what we
that's
do.
kinda what ours
That's
is,
what we
but
do.
You
conversely.
list what's permitted, but they list, all of this is permitted, and this is what's permitted by special exception. If it's not on that list, doesn't even get heard as a special exception, because it's not listed.
it can always be heard, but it's hard.
Yes, it's harder to prove it, and harder to get it approved, because they've already listed what the town will allow, and I can, again, I'll get a copy of that whole zoning ordinance for you guys to look at.
I know, I read, I think it was Lee's, and they start off with the definitions, and it starts off with the adult bookstore and the marijuana thing.
'Cause it's
And I'm
a-
like, what the hell is going on in Lee? That was my first
Close to-
impression.
Close to
Like,
the
what the hell's
university.
going on?
That was my only thing, is you got the agricultural districts here, you got that big piece of land, and these things are coming, and they're coming fast, because they've got the medical marijuana dispensaries opened already, they are grow facilities in the state, and the way the state of Maine and Vermont has gone, it's looking more and more like you're gonna start seeing recreational in the next 3 to 4 years here, so you may wanna be prepared for it when it comes, with some sort of zone.
We won't allow medical marijuana, but they'll allow McDonald's.
Let that sink in.
Which one is more harmful? That's a good question.
Oh,
They
yeah.
go hand in hand.
Well, weren't they getting their well-done fries over there in Lee for a while?
That was Dover.
All right, Mike still has the floor.
No, I'm done, I'm done.
All right.
I've created enough havoc.
Given that, we're going down a slippery slope, so maybe we can move on in the agenda. So I think absolutely productive meeting, thank you.
Turn us loose?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And zoning board, we just have a couple of cleanup things, unless you want to get into anything else. We have.
You're dismissing us as well?
If you want, but if you'd like to stay for our minutes and discussion of aquifer map, then you're more than welcome to.
I'd like them to stay for the aquifer map, since it's
Maybe we
overlaying.
could do that
Okay,
first.
let's do that, because that's what's next on the agenda. So we're gonna review the aquifer map.
When we'd asked them to include roads, I thought we meant road labels.
Okay.
Anybody,
Yeah, I think
maybe
that's-
not, but that was kind of like my understanding.
Yeah, no, I think that's, we should do that. Do you guys have,
They don't. I'm letting them share with
thanks.
me. Thank you. You're welcome.
share that?
Maybe just the planning board members got,
We can share.
Arlene's got one. Yeah. Sharing.
Ed, what do you mean by road labels?
So besides the major corridors, besides Route 4 and 152.
Every little road in town?
Well, especially these main roads, I mean, any of these roads that are actually
But what about the
shown.
one that's,
Do you,
In vicinity especially.
Yeah,
do you need it?
I mean,
So,
because
what-
I know this, like, so this is small here, but it's gonna be a 36 by 36 at some point, so there should be plenty of room for labels, and then from there, it'll be an overlay that you can look at online, that you can zoom in on, so anything that like it's clustered, that may be difficult to read, you know, a label on. Once you zoom in, you'd be able to see it pretty easily.
So, yeah, we have other maps which have a lot more detail to them, you know, like the water surface, resources map that has road names, stream, or has stream names at least.
Yeah, I think that one's the class, the different streams, class 1 through 4, maybe.
So we had a very blurry black and white 8.5 by 11 wrinkled piece of paper that we had previously as our aquifer overlay district.
Including topo. It was very hard to read.
It was a very difficult thing to read, so we have employed the Stratford Regional Planning Commission to create another map because they have all our GIS. And we've had a bunch of maps made recently to also include the Aquifer Overlay District so that it's a lot clearer where that is relative to other properties and locations so that we can, you know, if there is any question, then it can be zoomed into. That lot's, yes, is in the Aquifer Protection Area Overlay District, then, you know, certain regulations apply to that.
So does that show up on the tax map? Tax lot maps? No.
No, it will be,
We can turn that layer on.
ideally,
Oh,
we'll
awesome.
In
be a layer.
GIS.
Yeah,
so,
that would help.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is really just the map that would kind of hang on the wall.
Yeah.
That people could go to as they come into planning board, wondering if my lot is close to an aquifer overlay district. And then if it's somewhere close in here, then someone can turn on the layer of the tax maps and really drill into that specific property.
One comment that might be overly cynical, but the zoning ordinance refers to the map entitled Aquifer Protection District, and this is entitled Aquifer Protection Overlay District. Is that something that we would want to make sure that they're
They
consistent?
jive. Yes.
Yeah, they need to be the same.
What map are you talking about? Because I don't see it.
Yes, I think the easiest would be to get rid of overlay on the,
Yeah, okay.
the word overlay on the map.
Good catch.
Why are there no rivers shown in aquifer?
I think we asked for that, actually.
No, these are rivers.
I see rivers.
Sue had mentioned it, but we have a separate, the map that Dirk just mentioned, that one, water resources map has all the surface waters. So
Okay.
this is specifically for
Underground.
subsurface for the most part, except for some of the bigger items like Pawtuckaway and some of the ponds and such in town.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that a river, if there's a river there, it doesn't mean that it's an aquifer protected zone.
Right.
But most of the aquifer protected zones are near rivers. If you get that.
So
they
are
related?
are these groundwater resources or?
Yes.
Okay.
Groundwater resources.
Yeah, this is a stratified
Stratified
drift
aquifer.
aquifers. in
And
town.
then, do we have depths anywhere? I'm not seeing it as a detail on the map. Do we know that?
Depths of them?
Yeah.
No, I don't know the transmissivity of them. There's not a lot of detail other than that's what Granite had mapped
Okay.
as the limits.
All right.
Yeah, and again, yeah, like Dirk just mentioned, so if you go on Granite View, you can turn on this layer.
That's a good point. Maybe we should have that as a, if it's data available specific to aquifers, why not put it on there?
If it's available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where do we find this map that we can turn on layers? Is it online?
Not yet.
Oh, but it will be.
Yeah, so we're just having Stratford, the RPC, do this map. This is our draft that they sent us to ask what other information that would be on it. So that's why we're asking you.
Yeah, long-term goal is to add it to assessing to our tax maps as a layer, one of our GIS layers. But currently, Granite View, I don't know if you've used it at all, it was put on by, it was the UNH and the state, I think, and I can't remember what other organizations got together. But you can go online and start out, launch this kind of like a little application, and you can play around quite a bit. That you can put on municipal boundaries, which are sometimes off a little bit, but they give you a pretty good idea. You can add soils, topography, you can add this layer, wildlife resources,
That's awesome.
conservation lands.
So is it graniteview.com?
I just Google it every time, Granite View, but it's
Okay.
Granite without an E.
Oh,
EDU.
yeah, GRANIT.
It's an EDU site, yeah.
It's an EDU. It's part of.
Oh, .edu, so it's UNH.
Can I just ask, so what pertinence does the depth have with the zoning ordinance, or is it just curiosity?
I don't know if we have.
There's no reference to depth or anything in the overlay district.
Okay, so you're looking at the zoning for
Yeah.
overlay?
I'm just thinking if it's an extra cost to us to get it, then there's no purpose.
Yeah, but if it's data that's there, it might
Fair enough, okay.
might be beneficial to somebody who is in the aquifer overlay district.
Gotta change that one too.
Right, is that, they've mapped this out as a potential groundwater resource, but how deep? Like, to me, that's like only partial data.
And honestly, I'm kind of surprised that it's so small, there's so few, such a small area.
These are, these are the stratified drift aquifers identified by, I believe, by the state, by DES. Or USGS, one of the two.
Yeah, so that's just the basis we're using for our overlay districts. So where we're gonna have more restrictive regulations are gonna be within
Those
these
zones.
areas.
To protect these resources.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Yep.
So we're gonna have them add roads,
Yes,
road
but
names.
particularly
and-
roads that go through these areas in town, so people can
Yep.
identify where things are.
And then stream names, or, do you see
I don't
streams?
see, I don't see any river here,
Okay, so we're gonna add rivers.
Not
They're
make
there,
it-
they're very faint.
but,
They're here, they're not labeled though.
but not make it too messy. Because as Ed said, this is supposed to be an aquifer map.
Yep.
Right.
Right, we're trying to
It's gonna be very nice.
my thought on it was to keep it
But I think we should have
racial
roads.
clear, right,
Roads
versus,
is
People can,
something,
they can associate themselves
right,
where.
a lot of people don't
orientate.
know the names of any of the
Gee.
streams or rivers.
Can we get rid of the yellow and just say that everything that's not gray is agricultural residential? Residential
That might
agricultural?
make, that might make any of your other details that you add pop more, yeah,
It's overwhelming, the yellow is overwhelming.
yeah.
yeah, and we talked about that too, because before it was a little bit dark yellow, and when you add it to tax maps, the boundary lines are yellow, but a darker yellow. So, I think she said
What
they'd
was
gone
the-
with,
yeah, what was the
she
reasoning why it
used
was
this because
yellow?
we had it on another map.
That's-
Some of our other maps had this same yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, right here.
That looks like the
So this
aquifer.
would be 156.
It does look like,
Yeah, the aquifers are included in the surface water.
Oh, it is.
Research
Rivers, these little
resources.
things.
okay.
Maybe, or are they
So
roads?
maybe they should just have the aquifers yellow.
Is this Garland Road? No.
Anyway, I think there's some clarity that, yes, I agree.
I think they
I
want
don't- I think the yellow can go away. This one actually has lot lines on them, you can see the parcel lines, just very faintly, but if it was larger, you might be able to pick out definitely some reference properties.
I'm sure they left the aquifer as that shading, because that's what it comes up as on Granite View. The shading is blue and hashed is directly from that site. This map pretty much is directly from that site, minus the, obviously the town center and the, you know, our zoning area, but.
What else do you have, Sue?
I like the format of this. I can't even pick it up. Thank you. This map that's smaller and the legends are here tucked in. And this one's just really giant with a lot of empty space and the legend is over here on the right.
They're tiny.
Yeah.
And it doesn't
Hard to
really.
see. To me, anyway.
So we should have them formatted like the
Yeah,
rest of our
like,
maps.
and I think Kyle was the one that did all of
unheard
our
of.
maps.
But she's not there anymore, right?
Kyle
Kyle.
Pimental,
Ah.
who is gonna be finishing up. No,
Oh.
no, Rachel's not gonna be there anymore.
Right.
So Kyle's taken over the job.
Well, we'll just say we want them like that.
Yeah, perfect.
And we're gonna get rid of the yellow background?
Yes.
Yes. Please.
That would be my only comment.
Do we know if the Raymond, Epping, and Lee have a similar map? Only thinking that where we have some of these aquifers that actually cross into other towns, and if their restrictions are different than ours as far as water extraction and.
We don't care.
I think that Lee has aquifer maps. I think I've seen them was coming out of the clouds here, but I lived in Lee for quite a while.
Yeah. Not necessarily pertinent for decisions within the town boundary, but just the impacts of the other towns on our own water sources, so.
If there's a water extraction in those areas, I would hope that they would do it as a regional impact.
Yeah, I wonder if it's possible for them to turn on the other outline. I mean, there's plenty of space on the paper here. They could turn on the outline where it sits in the other town.
Close it in,
Yeah, just,
or if maybe
just show the outline
500 or
extension.
1,000 feet outside of the,
Yeah,
yeah, that might be that's.
Well, like this
Good
one does, it
comment.
shows how these features extend into our surrounding communities, which is just in a lighter color.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that would be good too.
So format it just like that.
Yeah.
You know that, Joanna?
again.
See this? That's what we want. Okay, very good. And I did put out the next thing on the agenda is the master plan update subcommittee. So I put out my little feeler there earlier. We're gonna put out a flyer, an advertisement, trying to solicit some interest in the master plan update.
When do you think you're gonna stop that?
Tonight, we're starting to solicit.
No, when do you think you're gonna start the committee? I guess it depends upon.
As soon as we get some volunteers.
Well, I think when I had introduced Tony, I said that I'd stay on for consistency as the select board rep.
Okay, great.
Subcommittee, because it would be too much for,
Yeah, I'm still getting my feet wet here.
and since
And you were
was
on it
actually-
before.
I was actually a community member on it before, and then look, then I ran for planning board. I was so excited about it.
And then you ran for select board.
I ran for select board.
As a
so-
committee
You
first.
might not want to share though.
3 people from that committee here tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who's the third?
Yeah.
Well,
Me,
you,
Sue,
Sue, you were
Yeah.
on it.
Charlie,
myself,
and Skip.
Skip, yeah.
Skip.
And
then
Joe.
Gary
Joe
Anderson
from-
for a while,
And Joe,
I
well,
think we
for,
need totally new faces.
Yes.
fine by me.
Objective view.
On the,
I'm
on-
interested.
I think the ad is really
Joe's
good.
in.
Joe's in.
Nice.
I think the ad is really good. If we're gonna put a date on it, I just wanna add a line, maybe say, miss the date, don't worry, you can still be a part of this. You know, members and whatever, your voice can still be heard at any time.
I think we need, just my input on this is that we needed to say what this is. So planning board seeking new subcommittee members for what? I think we
Master
should-
plan rewrite.
I think we have to have master plan up on top, really
Yeah.
kind of highlighted
I
as,
used the template of the former one, that's why I didn't have that, but I
see,
agree.
fresh eyes.
Yep.
Yeah, that should be at the top.
Well, you see what kind of group worked on it the last time.
That was the longest committee I've ever been on.
It was 3 years.
well, that was a big overhaul.
That was the first major one in like
That was a-
20-something years.
Yeah, that was a huge.
How many years ago was that?
2011.
2011 was adopted.
Yeah, so you guys actually were working on it probably
10
2010
or
and
9.
I think it was like 3
9,
years.
It was easily 3 years that we were doing that.
So
It was
7.
adopted in 2012.
2012?
So we finished in 2011.
And
First year on planning board, I
just,
think, second
is,
year.
is the thought that we would enlist some outside assistance for any of it, or what's,
We might, but, you know, you guys did such a good job the first time.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's formatted really well, it has a lot of action items in it. I think it might be a easier lift this time to go through and really just update it, or
Yeah.
maybe action items are already taken place.
Right,
And then maybe
Yeah.
making new items.
yeah.
I think that's really what's,
Yeah, I don't think it needs a full overhaul.
no,
I
no.
wouldn't
Just a
think
lot
so.
of old data that we probably
Yeah,
want to.
right.
Right.
That's what I'm wondering, just some of the stats behind some of that might,
Yeah, as
Right.
you finished up right after the 2010 census, so all that data was popping out
Right.
slowly, so a lot of that's updated.
Yeah, I think this is, it is just an update, not an overhaul.
yeah.
But
Okay.
I think there
Yeah.
are other areas that, you know, let's take the marijuana piece as,
Yeah.
you know, there are things that weren't applicable in 2012 that might be now. You know, the
Right.
ADUs, the marijuana, I guess adult stores have been around for a while.
And like, I think we had, for some of the different chapters, like, that, revolved around police, we had them review it, we had, well, rec kind of went rogue, during that process, so, but we might wanna, have rec look at.
And, you know, another good example is that now there's, you know, recreation impact fees.
Right.
So there's a master plan that maybe a 10-year plan that the Recreation Department has, that should be folded in.
And then another thing is, I guess, tying into the master plan, kind of go back to the zoning discussions and such, you know, anything that's, any bigger items that are identified, you know, if other communities hold, was it charrettes?
Yeah.
Which is just a fancy way to say, I think, public meeting to get input. And then, and also, you know, we're talking about the Route 4 corridor, and really, and the town really wants that to be developed for commercial, industrial. You know, do we look at TIF districts and things like that? And obviously, would be something completely new to the town. So I think if you identify something like that during the master plan process, or we do as the planning board process, that we probably seek assistance on it, unless anybody else has a strong background in it. I don't, so.
And I know I was watching I was watching one of the more recent meetings for a little while. And you had said that you'd gone to workshop and they said, I'm gonna focus on a couple of chapters at a time and not. Did they say, when you focus on a couple of chapters, does that mean, okay, so say we update 3, does that mean then we put forth that
Yes, as a new document.
as a new document, just and somehow reflect that it was just those?
It makes probably the public hearing easier and everything else, because people can have a lot less of a section to digest and come forward. So last time I was like, the whole thing came in and people were like, you're on public hearing. It's like, you're talking about any piece in it.
Right, and, you know, we did have this, well, we do have this transportation subcommittee, and I think so the transportation section of this, as far as action items, I think we've been kind of progressing a lot of that through the subcommittee. So some of those updates are good to put in here.
And I think part of it.
And I think it's an easy lift for that, because we already had a subcommittee.
And then as for like the whole thing or chapters, I think the last discussion we'd had as a board was, we were gonna kind of leave that up to the master plan committee, subcommittee to discuss that and decide how it was gonna be tackled specifically. Planning board was just creating a subcommittee from there.
Yeah, and I'd like to, you know, have it as an open discussion for whoever the subcommittee members are, to what their vision of this update can be, and not kind of just direct it to be this.
Right.
You know, if we get some outside public input or a member on there, then, you know, they'll bring in maybe a different idea. So I'd like to keep that option flowing until a subcommittee's set up, and then it has its initial kickoff meeting and brainstorm of, you know, ideas. Okay, well, we've got a couple of volunteers. Thank you very much, and I think we're gonna put out this ad and try and solicit some more.
So this ad is approved by you guys, with the exception of changing, or adding for the master plan update subcommittee to the top line.
I'd like to add my thoughts on this. I think most people in the community do not realize how important a strong master plan document is. That all of our town regs must be reflected by what we have in the master plan. And only with a strong master plan can assaults to what our decisions are be held up in court. So it's just not a blueprint for the future, it is our future. It is the guiding document for the town of Nottingham. And if you can strengthen that in any way.
Sure, that language right there is actually direct from our master plan, so.
Is a blueprint for the future?
Yes.
But it doesn't reflect the fact that it is a
The
vision
importance
for
of it.
our regulatory
So like a
documents.
legal underpinning.
It is
The
our,
foundation of the zoning ordinance and other things.
I guess I would like
Words.
direct language change.
Okay, well.
If not now, email to me.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll just have a read through
I
it.
don't want
not
to
at 9 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
tomorrow maybe.
Yeah,
All right, so I won't be putting this out, but I'll definitely add that, and I'll be seeking whatever I get for email.
Okay.
And then what do we want for, about the forms to be received by? When do we see starting this?
$30 days.
Is
So
it
put a
July-
date on it?
July 1st?
I think if you give it a full 24 hours, you'd probably have to shut off the acceptance at that point anyway.
24 hours.
I mean, you gotta think too, the summertime, right?
I would say, if you do July 1st.
Yeah, you might want to start in
September.
Solicit volunteers during the summer and start in September, when kids are back at school and you get back to a regimen in life.
Well, I was thinking July being the date for people to say they're interested and then started in the.
And then started in September, you
Right.
could.
Yeah,
still-
but you know what, then they're gonna be interested in July and not in August, or
Too
not in
bad.
September.
Too bad they signed up.
Should I say, by the way, signing the form, volunteer form signs are by the way?
Obligation.
Yeah, and the good thing with the master plan is it can be adopted at any time. It's with public hearing, not, so we're not stuck to the same
Right.
timelines as we are with
Oh,
other
it's
stuff.
town meeting.
Do we
If we
do it
did
at
do
town meeting?
July, I'd say do July 4th
Do
and
we
then
adopt
have
it
it
at town
around the
meeting, or does the
independence of
committee
Nottingham,
adopt it?
setting the vision for
Planning
the
board
town.
adopts it?
Planning
Right
board
into that.
adopts it.
Yeah, we have to hold 1 or 2 public hearings and then it's adopted.
So July 4th then?
Yeah, let's do that.
July 4th.
She's kidding.
For what?
No, for the cutoff, for
Oh.
people to apply, and then you put the theme around this. We're self-governing society because of independence, and this is a way that people can have a say in the future vision of the town.
Whatever.
At least it's thematic and
I don't know, I'm
it'll
feeling
catch
like I
people's
need to blow
attention.
some trumpets and bang some drums now and walk on the flag. Jeez.
I'm a change manager in my day job, so you have to motivate people.
All right, well, then let's give it 1 week for any edits. And then July 4th for
Put some flags on it. Is there an electronic version already out, or is this the only, do we just have the hard copy?
I don't think I may have put it on the website. If not, I can definitely send it to you.
Yeah, we've got 5 minutes left in this meeting.
So did you have a time frame of when you were gonna sit down and do the zoning ordinance rewrite, edit stuff? I'm not available July 4th.
We don't have a time frame yet,
Okay.
but I'll get in touch with you via email or something, and then
That works.
kind of schedule, see how things fall out.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I think we should figure out how many potential zoning amendments we may be proposing this year and decide if we want to rewrite it after that, after town meeting next year. I don't want to have us do a big rewrite, because that.
I'd rather rewrite it and have it ready for town meeting.
And then just append stuff in, because it's would move, because we have like 4 or 5, several things.
I mean, it's only a 30-page document, so I mean, it's not gonna kill us. Or at least me, I teach, so I got some free time this summer.
Just not 4th of July.
So when you rewrite the entire zoning ordinance, if you change the order of it, does that entire document have to go on the ballot? Did? Or do you just make it available?
I think you make it available.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's not major changes, right, I mean, like, if it's grammatical and structure, I think.
Yeah, if we're
I remember what
changing the
Paul
order
was-
of things,
had
we
said.
don't need to.
Right.
We do have a couple of things that are changing, but.
Yes,
But not the entire document.
Probably once you change it, you should run it by your legal counsel and
Yeah.
answer that question.
Yeah.
Like the answer.
But he or she cannot figure it out till it's done.
Right.
Okay, so, planning board members, there is a draft of a letter that came from the Transportation Subcommittee, and these are a draft letter of recommendations and action items for the town manager for the select board. And the letters are in your packet there. I'm just gonna summarize what the subcommittee has kind of recommended in its priorities. And the number 1 priority is improvements to New Hampshire routes 152 and 156. And these are specifically out of our master plan. So there were action items. Those action items have been vetted through the planning board, and we're asking now to implement them, we need the town manager or the select board to take action. And the first one with improvements to New Hampshire routes 152 and 156, the master plan elements were to add some width to the pavement to make it easier and safer for pedestrians and bicycles to operate on 152 and 156, the state roads. In order to do that, a request needs to be made from the town to New Hampshire DOT because it's their roads. And when we looked at that, we, instead of adding width to the, adding width to the road, which is fairly costly and it would not really be supported at the DOT level, we have requested that they narrow the travel lanes to allow a wider shoulder, a more generous shoulder. Because the travel lanes on 152 and 156 are 12 feet plus, and a lot of communities have made this request, and they have been granted by DOT to go to 11, even 10 and a half. So we're requesting the town to request the DOT to reduce the travel lane width. And it's important, and it's one of the top priorities here, because if you've driven 152, you're seeing a lot of culverts being replaced. They are gonna be repaving, overlaying 152 this season. So it would be just a matter of them painting the stripes differently. So we wanna take that opportunity, now that it's here,
Get it done.
to get it done.
Yeah.
Dirk, does that have any influence on the speed limit when the state reduces the width of the lanes?
Doesn't, no.
It's only 40 anyway.
It's 40, and yeah, it's anything above 45, there's kind of this, you can have them 11-foot lanes, so we're even okay in that.
All right. So they make the two travel lanes narrower and they make one shoulder wider?
No, they'll make them equidistant.
Okay.
So you'll have both a kind of a northbound and southbound,
All right.
152 anyway.
Yeah.
Even if it's just one more foot,
Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
it makes
Oh,
a
yeah.
huge difference, because it will tend to slow people down and go 40 and not 55, because it's a narrower lane. But then it allows some buffer area for cyclists to not have to straddle that line all the time and run the risk of, right next to that line is the edge of pavement.
I wouldn't dare ride a bicycle on either of those roads right now.
But it's hard even walking it.
Yeah,
It's going
I'm
from
sure.
my house to the store or
Oh,
to
yeah.
the town hall.
Oh, yeah, it's sketchy.
It's
Yeah.
horrible.
Dirk, do you think that if we got a letter in, like,
Tomorrow?
well, we wouldn't be able to do it tomorrow, because, we'd have to wait probably till the next select board meeting. Do you think we would be able to get there? Do you think that they
Yep.
listen in beforehand and,
Yeah.
okay, and paint them accordingly?
Yeah, I mean, they're probably 2 months out before they
Okay.
even put paint down, so.
Okay,
And we've spoken to someone from DOT multiple times.
Okay.
So they are expecting something.
Okay.
And I started talking with them a year ago.
Right.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
while ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, we've expressed these concerns and they were like, just have your town send in the letter.
okay.
I think we voiced it pretty much every chance we had, red listed for the 10-year plan and things like that. I think we've
Yeah.
always brought it up every time they have a whole hearing
Yeah,
for
and
that
I think
too.
it's good that you call out the master plan, you can put that in the letter.
Yep.
But you think, I don't know, for other town, state roads that do this, do you think they'll add the little bike symbol in that lane at all?
No,
Or-
they can't.
They
No, you can't have a bike symbol in anything that's less than 3 feet.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So
Won't be able
signage.
to
But
do
we're,
it. It'll-
but one of the other action items is signage.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, which is the number 2.
I think pointing that out, that it's a state designated bike route.
Right.
It's like you're designating this a bike route and then.
Well, if you don't know it, in 2 weeks, there's gonna be a bicycle race through the town of Nottingham with over 300 riders.
Right, and how do we know? Yeah.
Right. I mean, how do you know? I
We
mean,
don't.
it's- Right. And that's what's gonna happen. There's, it's, Raid Rockingham. So, these are areas that wanna be ridden, our town roads are, this specific ride is primarily on gravel roads, and, we have a lot of those, so it's a great ride. Anyway, so bicycle signage along would kind of couples with making it a little bit safer, share the road signs. And we have reversed priorities here, switched priorities from 3 and 4. The fourth one, which now is the third priority, is invasive species along roadways. Japanese knotweed is an invasive species that's been inundating the roadways, and an action item is for the town to, which I think they are starting to get certified to be able to apply herbicides, I guess?
Herbicide.
Okay, so herbicides, but they have to be permitted, licensed herbicide appliers or something, so.
I think they basically have to inject into every single shoot. You
Yeah,
can't, it's
I
not a
think so.
spray herbicide.
Herbicides can be horrifically dangerous.
That's why they have to be trained and licensed in it. It's not just a
To
blanket
everybody.
application.
So that's an action item we're requesting. And then scenic roads, there was a,
Just, so you
Sorry.
identify some examples, but, any sense of priority?
For location?
Yeah. Like I drove down Berry Road the other day, and oh my gosh,
yeah.
there's like a field growing right into a wetland.
I think we're trying to just
Address it.
address it
Okay.
and bring this issue to the select board
Yeah, this
to take
was,
some action, have a licensed applier, and I'd rather leave the priorities to the select board or to the
to the,
Conservation.
conservation, well,
yeah.
since it's mostly on the roadways, maybe the public works,
Yeah, it'd be added to the road
Yeah.
plan.
But would they be well aware of what they're looking for as much as a Conservation Commission member would be?
well, they'd be trained.
Oh, yeah, these people would be, educated and licensed.
Oh, no, I know
Is that
that.
what you mean?
No, as far as for determining areas that.
Where to spray it?
No, like more sensitive to,
Yeah, I think it's gonna
To
take an
address first.
assessment, right, or
Well, that's what I'm thinking. A
something.
combination of Conservation Commission going, this is an area that's critically important, or this is an area that's critically important, and then working it that way.
Priorities.
I'm just thinking
Yeah.
that. It could be different.
And stay ahead of grading and other activities on the roadsides that might exasperate, so
Yeah.
we know what that schedule
Garland
looks like.
Road.
And these are just, and let me preface all of this, is these are recommendations, they're coming out of the transportation subcommittee from the planning board, basically to the select board, that has a lot of priorities of their own. So this is just planning board's input to them.
This is a huge undertaking, long-term.
Yep,
Plan.
Can I speak to this even though it's not?
absolutely.
My father died from a blood condition caused by herbicides, so I'm very sensitive to the dangers of them. So I just tried to Google a natural way of getting rid of Falopia japonica to find out it plays a big role in treating Lyme disease.
Yeah, the sprouts.
I mean, it's interesting, we have a huge amount of Lyme disease in this town, in this state and in this town. And here we have all this herb that, oops, no, these are,
And we're gonna spray it and kill it?
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
We're not allowed to move
but
it.
my understanding from an herbalist is you don't wanna use the Japanese knotweed alongside the roads because they're sprayed with salt.
Sprayed with salt and the stuff that comes out of gasoline and.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's the,
and you can also, you can eat it. It's actually in the buckwheat family.
right.
So if you
It's
find
edible, you mean?
young shoots,
Oh, yeah, the shoots, you can eat
don't-
them.
Shoot, the young shoots.
don't cut it and toss it into compost or anything else because it'll grow. It doesn't take very much. It stuff grows like a 10-foot root and it'll shoot under the roadway to the other side. It's pretty amazing how robust it is.
You can't suffocate it out, right?
No.
Black plastic,
Black
3
plastic
years,
Can
and
you-
rugs.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah,
suffocate it out?
yeah, you can get old rugs, black plastic, old rugs, 3 years.
Cutting it and dumping it into like a 55-gallon drum of water and sealing it for a long time until it rots is another one.
I think it still requires a licensed person touching it though, right?
Oh, no, just the pesticide.
No, I thought because it's
herbicide.
invasive species,
Right.
I thought legally
We can't move it.
we can't
cut
do
it.
anything
Right.
to it.
I'm not recommending this, I'm just
Not
saying
on a
things I've
public
read.
roadway, but if you have it on your private
Okay.
property.
Oh, yeah,
We got it.
gotcha, gotcha.
We got it.
All right,
Okay.
so the
Just want to make sure we're not
other,
making recommendations we can't actually do anything with.
moving on to the fourth one. So the scenic roads, we spent a lot of time on scenic roads, and I think it's really a good point here, and good action item is to designate the scenic roads that we do have, install some signages, get some public knowledge or information that we actually have scenic roads by them just driving by and saying, oh, that's the scenic road, and then driving down it and saying, yeah, these are great roads. Taking, investment of their own into the properties that are along those scenic roads, maybe not throw that, McDonald's cup out on that scenic road, maybe wait until you get into Lee.
Or the old tires.
Yeah. Well, I live on Poor Farm and Berry Road, and I walk that constantly, and there's just amazing amounts of trash that people just
There is on
discard.
McCrillis too.
Probably every road there is.
Horrible.
Usually a certain radius.
Yeah,
from-
it's especially bad.
Speaking of, so these new signs sound awesome. I guess I would implore the public to not steal them.
Yeah, like the turtle
With
signs.
other signs that have gone missing in town. I'm sure it's, nobody, if anybody's listening, probably not doing it, but
Big boats.
yes. Please don't steal the
So, yeah,
signs.
we would like to see some scenic road signs.
Yeah, so if you could get this letter to us, and so that, maybe we can just drop an email to Chris to
Yeah.
get it scheduled for the next.
Do you wanna,
When's your next meeting?
do you want a motion on this? Because
Yes.
on the bottom it says planning board has moved, so I move that the planning board send our list of recommendations made by the planning board transportation subcommittee as edited to the selectmen.
Second.
Motion is second, any other discussion? Those in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed.
So the edits is switching 3 and 4, correct?
Right.
Yep. And we'll include a date here, the planning board has moved, oh, that's today.
June 4th.
Okay, well, we'll have the meeting, we'll have this finalized, signed, and to you guys before June 4th meeting. Comes to the end, other than minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes
I'm
for,
May 9th?
yes.
I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna interrupt you. I had sent quite a bit of edits to Joanna, around 3. I'm sure nobody's had a chance to read them, and I was gonna bring them, but, because they were kind of significant, I would request that we
Defer.
defer till the next meeting, so you guys can all take a read through them.
Yeah, I haven't seen them.
I have to withdraw my,
Sorry to interrupt you.
We will push the minutes, approval of minutes of May 9th to the next meeting. Sure. I mean, unless anybody has any other comments, we usually have an open comment period, but everybody, I see a shaking of heads.
Haven't had dinner yet.
I see
I'm good.
shaking of heads.
Thank you for the townwide cleanup last week, everybody.
Thank you for coordinating.
Part of McCrillis got picked up. Bud Lights, ton of them.
unbelievable.
Bud Lights.
And just to go back, so the application that was withdrawn, the planning board needs to take no action on that.
Right, because they withdrew it.
So can we just make sure that that's reflected in the minutes in case someone's tracking it?
Already did, because it was part of the discussion.
Thank you very
In the
much.
beginning.
Sorry.
May I interrupt?
Yes, anything from you?
Thank you. I handed to you the email correspondence with Roscoe Blaisdell. They have decided not to go for a variance, and they're reducing their lot. And we just need to vote or not. I don't know how to handle this.
Yeah, we don't need to vote.
To accept their changed date.
Yeah, originally we continued it to a specific date and time. So
August.
if they want a different date and time, we'd have to.
Yeah, so I think we need to take it under advisement before we have a vote for that. Primarily because we'd like to make sure what the changes reflect You know, if it's significant enough, then we may wanna have a reapplication. So that's something we wanna do before we just say it's continued until such and such date.
Right, because isn't the continuance goes on what they originally applied for, not what they're necessarily changing?
Yeah, but if there are minor changes, if you drop a lot off of a subdivision or something like that while it's in review, that's not a significant change. But in this case, there might be some, I mean, going from 6 to 4, it might be.
There have been a couple in the recent past, though, in which, upon review, the developer downsized the number of lots. There was one on Smoke Street that went from 5 to 4. There was Flutter Street where they wanted 21 and it got dropped down to 18 or something. So I think a review of what we've done in the past year might reflect on what would be the proper avenue to take with this.
Yeah, and I think, just going back to Dirk's question, I mean, we don't know, I don't think, I haven't seen anything on it, so not knowing how significant the change is, I think it wouldn't be appropriate for the board at this point to change the continuation date until we've, you know, we've had a chance to look at it.
True, we haven't seen it. We haven't seen the reapplication, so. But
Did he submit revised plans with that request?
So I told him to get the revised plans to me by the 29th. Right? I think it says it in that email.
By when?
May 29th.
Oh, May
So that would be
29th.
next, I'm sorry, 28th, that would be next month.
Monday.
Monday. Maybe not May 28th, because that's Memorial Day.
Yeah, I don't see the date
You
in
don't
this,
see the date?
in this
Okay.
one, but.
But he's requesting June 13th now, and that's our next meeting, which is why I'm requesting information from the board on communication back to him. The board said yay, or the board said nay.
Well, if we don't have any information from him,
Besides the fact that he's going from 6 to 4 lots.
yeah, I mean, I'd rather keep the original continuance date. I mean, if they're ready for something earlier, that's fine, but we haven't seen any of the information to know that they're ready to be heard on the 13th.
So when are they continued to?
August 8th.
So what we should do is they should get the plan so that we can review them at the June meeting. And then we can make a decision about
Yeah,
whether we can move them up or whether they're gonna wait till August.
yeah, that's fair.
Are you talking a paper review or Cousins of Roscoe review?
No, have all the plans to us.
Plans
so
to
the
us
board
prior
can-
to the 13th meeting so that we can review them to see if they're significant enough for a reapplication, or if the continuance can be pushed up for them.
It'll have to be that date you mentioned, like May 29th, because we need it far enough in advance of that meeting to actually look at them, you know, and have a pretty good idea of it before we make a decision. We can't get them, you know, a day before.
If we get them the day before, then we just push it forward another month. They're not gonna push us to make the.
Right.
They agreed to the August continuance.
Exactly. So
agreed to
so
the
if they don't get to the
August
plans to us in a timely fashion to review them in June, we'll review them in July.
Right.
If I remember correctly, you did say to him that we need to have the materials at least 2 weeks prior to a meeting to review, so that would be the 29th.
Yep.
So if nothing emerges by then, I would say that, you know, his chance to see us on the 13th is forfeit.
I'd say that we take it under advisement. We'll take it under advisement for our next meeting, that we will discuss it as a board then about a potential change of the continuation date.
Yeah, I don't wanna, I agree. I don't think we should hear it on the, I don't think we should have a continuance of the public hearing on the 13th. At least until we see it. Even if we see it on the 29th, we still wanna discuss it as a board.
Yep.
And don't we have to let all, I mean, the abutters and everybody that heard that initial case is expecting it to be in August,
Correct.
They would have to be noticed.
They would have to be noticed.
at least somehow.
10 days ahead of time, so, I mean, it's not
Right.
even looking like we could even get them into the June 13th meeting.
No.
It's too short.
So my job is to communicate with Roscoe that he needs to get the plans to me by the 29th for you guys to have an opportunity to look at them. And I need to have a new abutters notice hearing notice sent out, which is a $75 fee plus 10 per abutter.
Before you go to that, we need to sit and review the plans, and then on the 13th, we'll
Determine. a public
determine the
hearing date.
next, yeah,
Okay.
we'll review the public hearing date.
Okay.
If it's different than the August 8th. If we have a request from him to move up the date from August to June.
Right.
So he already agreed on the August to June to meet in 2 weeks is not feasible for this board because we don't have plans to review.
Correct.
So we will take it under advisement and then see if we either are gonna hold the September date, or the August date, sorry, or if there's another meeting agenda that he can come in on and that's allows for public notification, for a butters notification.
Okay. Okay,
Got it?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else on that one?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
A second.
Motion and second. Let's go.
I was hoping there'd be discussion on that, but.
Sue was getting so tired.
You may discuss it with yourself, Joe.
Yes.
But this was a dreidel.